Assuming facade of a modest three-story building, Wang Yong once again found himself arguing with the burly guard at the entrance.
Brother!
This is urgent, I have critical news. Wang Yong yelled, his voice echoing through the otherwise quiet lobby. From above, curses and exasperated voices rang out.
Damn it, Wang Yong.
Just because you're my cousin doesn't mean you can barge in every time. A flushed and furious Wang Gangjian stuck his head out of an upper-floor window, glaring at Wang Yong like an irritated rooster. You've already interrupted me twice this week. It's about the high-level zombies. Wang Yong shouted, urgency evident in his tone. That got Wang Gongjian's attention. Fine, come up, he barked, disappearing back into the building. Moments later, the two sat across from each other in a small, cluttered office. Wang Yong wasted no time. Bro, why are you still wasting your time battling the Giant King? You're so bad at it, you should just quit and focus on something productive. Wang Gangjian snorted, refusing to meet his cousin's eyes. One more try, and I'll beat him for sure. He immediately dove back into the glowing screen in front of him, where his avatar was locked in a brutal battle.
Wang Yong sighed.
Let me try while you listen to what I have to say. If you can beat him in one go, I'll listen, Wang Gangjian retorted, tossing him the controller with a scoff. Grinning, Wang Yong took the controller, navigating the game's labyrinthine corridors with ease. Reaching the Giant King's throne, he grabbed the legendary greatsword leaning against it and unleashed a series of devastating strikes. In mere moments, the massive boss crumbled, defeated. Setting the controller down, Wang Yong leaned back.
Now, will you listen?
Wang Gangjian gawked at the screen in disbelief.
How did you do that?
That sword, how was it so powerful? Will you listen now, or should I replay the fight?
Wang Yong growled.
Reluctantly, Wang Gangjian crossed his arms.
Fine, speak.
Wang Yong launched into his story, detailing his harrowing encounter at the Haotai Hotel. His tone grew grim as he described the terrifying sight of two high-level zombies, their unnatural presence seared into his memory.
You're certain?
Wang Gongjian's demeanor shifted, his usual brashness replaced by a rare seriousness.
Absolutely. They weren't ordinary zombies.
Their stature, their eyes, it was like staring death in the face. If that van hadn't sped away in time. Wang Yong's voice trailed off. Wang Gangjian nodded solemnly. If that's true, we need to avoid that area entirely. Those kinds of zombies could cause chaos if they break out. We can't just avoid them, Wang Yong countered. If they spread, it'll be too late to stop them. We need help, someone with the firepower to deal with them.
Agreed.
The Linjiang army has the resources and superhumans who can handle this.
I'll contact them.
Wang Gongjian's tone was resolute.
Leave it to me.
Hashtag at the Haotai Hotel. Meanwhile, Chu Xuan sat cross-legged in the dimly lit hotel room, exhaling deeply as he completed his cultivation session. Around him, the faint glow of 9 large blood beads shimmered in the air, the remnants of a once bountiful supply. His dantian swelled with refined spiritual qi, nearing its capacity for his current level. Sensing this, he ceased his practice. The quiet was broken by a low rumbling noise. Chu Xuan turned toward the bathtub, where the source of the sound emerged, a colossal figure rising from the viscous corpse refining elixir. The corpse puppet towered at nearly 8 feet, its sinewy muscles rippling beneath skin reinforced with bone armor that gleamed faintly under the room's flickering light. A bone shield rested in its left hand, and in its right, a spear radiated a ghastly pale glow, both clearly magical tools of considerable power. Chu Xuan's eyes narrowed in surprise. Born with magical tools? Interesting. The puppet roared, a deep guttural sound that shook the room. Around it, lesser corpse puppets trembled and prostrated themselves in submission. Even Chu Xuan's more experienced corpse puppets, Daho and Erho, cowered in fear, while only Hu and Bao managed to maintain composure under the oppressive aura. The towering puppet locked eyes with Chu Xuan, its glowing gaze unyielding. For a tense moment, the two regarded each other. Then, with a low growl of submission, the puppet knelt, acknowledging Chu Xuan as its master. Chu Xuan gestured casually, summoning the puppet into his corpse-nurturing tower, where a streak of black light enveloped it. Level 7 corpse soldier, he murmured, his eyes gleaming with approval. Let's see what you can do, Chu Xuan said, casting an identification spell. The results left him impressed. Golden light, an enhancement spell for defense. Divine strength, which vastly amplified physical power. And most intriguingly, corpse howl, a rare ability that weakened the spirits of enemies while bolstering the puppet's aggression.
Excellent! Chu Xuan exclaimed.
A corpse puppet with corpse howl was a natural leader, capable of rallying others to fight with unrelenting fervor. You shall be called Long. The puppet roared in approval, the name sealing its identity. Turning to his other puppets, Chu Xuan gave instructions.
Long Hu, go out and hunt. Hu, teach Long the rules.
Bao, you'll remain with me for now. As the two puppets leaped into the shadows of the apocalyptic city, Chu Xuan stored the remaining puppets in the corpse nurturing tower, ensuring they would absorb the yin qi necessary for their growth. With Long's innate power and the enhancements to my techniques, I'll soon reach the 9th level of qi refining, Chu Xuan mused. Once I return to the Mystic Azure Realm, I'll be unstoppable below the Foundation establishment stage. His mind filled with visions of future conquests, Chu Xuan resumed his cultivation, his ambitions burning brighter than ever. Orthodox cultivators seeking to ascend to the Foundation establishment stage often relied on the elusive Foundation establishment pill, a critical resource for solidifying their spiritual foundation. Only a rare few with extraordinary talent could bypass the pill and achieve the breakthrough on their own. However, acquiring such a pill was no simple feat. The primary ingredient, the Dao caltrip flower, a spiritual herb at the Foundation establishment stage, commanded a steep price of 10 medium spiritual stones. On top of that, the pill required an assortment of 7 to 12 additional qi refining stage spiritual medicines, each with its own cost and rarity. Even with all the ingredients, success was far from guaranteed. Even the most skilled alchemists succeeded in only 4 out of 10 attempts. Demonic cultivators, however, had devised an alternative. They replaced the Dao caltrip flower with the life soul flower, a peculiar bloom born from the essence of powerful beings, and substituted the other spiritual medicines with more common alternatives. These modifications drastically lowered the cost of crafting foundation pills, yielding the Foundation establishment blood pill, an unconventional yet potent solution for those treading the demonic path. Chu Xuan, lacking access to the resources of orthodox cultivation, had long prepared to pursue this demonic route. The 8th to 9th level breakthrough. Sitting atop the rooftop of the Haotai Hotel, Chu Xuan took a deep breath and resumed refining the large blood beads he had painstakingly collected. Over the course of a month, his cultivation had progressed rapidly, fueled by a near-constant supply of these potent energy sources. He was now at the peak of the 8th level of qi refining, separated from the 9th level by a thin yet stubborn bottleneck. The food reserve stored in the Spirit Hound's warehouse had dwindled significantly, forcing Chu Xuan to periodically interrupt his cultivation to eat. Despite his diligent efforts, only one blood bead remained, and the barrier to the 9th level still refused to yield. With gritted teeth, Chu Xuan absorbed the final large blood bead, channeling its surging vitality into his dantian. The strain was immense, veins bulging on his forehead as he roared, "Break for me!" Whether due to his sheer determination or the potent destiny surrounding him, the bottleneck shattered like glass. A boom echoed across the rooftop, sweeping it clean of dust and debris. Chu Xuan's aura exploded outward, startling even his corpse puppets, who prostrated themselves in fear. Only after his energy stabilized did they cautiously rise, casting curious glances at their master. Opening his eyes, Chu Xuan exhaled a long breath of stale air. "The 9th level of qi refining," he murmured with a smile. "Now I only need to fill my dantian completely before attempting the breakthrough to the Foundation establishment stage." The Wolf's Den. Before Chu Xuan could dwell on his success, the sound of approaching footsteps interrupted his thoughts. Long and Hu, his most powerful corpse puppets, emerged onto the rooftop, each dragging a spiritual hound in their claws. Hu bowed respectfully, followed by the other corpse puppets. Long, however, hesitated, its eyes flickering with defiance. Chu Xuan's gaze hardened. "Do you think reaching the 8th level makes you strong enough to defy me?" With a burst of spiritual qi, Chu Xuan unleashed an oppressive pressure that bore down on Long like a mountain. The corpse puppet's knees buckled, cracking audibly as it knelt. It let out a pained scream but dared not rise, realizing the futility of resistance. "Rebellious creature," Chu Xuan muttered coldly. Though corpse puppets were tools of war, they often retained traces of their former personalities. Long's defiant nature was clearly a remnant of its past. Turning to Hu, Chu Xuan offered a blood bead as a reward. "You've done well, reaching the 7th level. This is your reward." Hu eagerly consumed the bead, its energy radiating from its body. Tugging at Chu Xuan's robes, it seemed to want to communicate something. Chu Xuan connected with Hu's thoughts and quickly understood. "You've discovered a den of giant wolves, and they're preparing to ambush you." Chu Xuan's eyes gleamed with interest. The psionic energy that permeated this world had transformed not only humans but also animals and plants, creating extraordinary beasts and flora. Intelligent giant wolves were a dangerous threat to human survivors, but for Chu Xuan, they represented an opportunity. The wolves' den could serve as a perfect nurturing ground for the life soul flowers, Chu Xuan thought. Once I return to the Mystic Azure Realm, the flowers should be fully matured and ready for harvesting.
He turned to Hu.
"Where is their territory?" Hu roared, pointing towards a hill in the north.
Chu Xuan nodded.
Long, Hu and the other 6 follow me. Bao will stay behind to guard the hotel. The puppets roared in acknowledgement. Bao looked slightly aggrieved but brightened when Chu Xuan allowed Daho and Erho to stay as well. They'll keep you company, Chu Xuan said with a dismissive wave. Summoning the remaining puppets into the corpse nurturing tower, Chu Xuan mounted his flying sword and sped toward the wolves' den. ##### at the Black Blade Security Company. Back at the Black Blade Security Company, Wang Gangjian sat in the manager's office, his expression stormy. Across from him, Wang Yong looked equally troubled. I didn't call you here to sulk with me. Wang Gangjian snapped. I need solutions. Wang Yong scratched his head awkwardly. It's not that easy. A monster that wiped out a 6-person squad from the Linjiang army isn't something our 4 superhumans can handle. They're only level 1. Wang Gongjian's face darkened. I told you to crush the psionic core and consume it. With your talent, you'd already be a level 2 superhuman by now. Do you know how much stronger we'd be with you at level 2?
Wang Yong winced.
Eating a psionic core isn't guaranteed to work, you know. There's a 1/3 chance of success, failure, or no effect. My body isn't exactly built for that kind of risk. Wang Gangjian slammed his fist on the table, frustration etched on his face. If we don't find a way to handle this, it won't just be our company at risk, it'll be the entire city.
Hey everyone, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy the audiobooks, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support us further, consider becoming a Patreon member. As a member, you'll gain the ability to request the next part of a novel audiobook I've uploaded, depending on your Patreon tier.
After a prolonged reflection, Wang Yong at last declared, those creatures precisely block the highway stretching from Linjiang military base to us. Even a small team from Linjiang forces was overwhelmed by their assault. Only a single soul managed to flee to safety. I propose that we should not act with haste. The priority now is to gather intelligence, to ascertain their numbers, and locate their lair. When Linjiang dispatches more troops, we shall encircle and utterly annihilate these monsters. Hearing this, Wang Gangjian nodded his approval, a sound plan. Let us proceed accordingly. Let us take Song and probe their actual strength. Wang Yong nodded and promptly set about making the arrangements. A short while later, the trio climbed into a van. They were Wang Gangjian, Wang Yong, and Song Dei, joined by Tang Jinchuan. Together, they constituted all the superhumans of the Black Blade Security Company. However, the company always required someone to hold the fort. This duty was assigned to Tang Jinchuan. Yet, before the van could depart, a figure staggered towards them, pursued by a gasping, portly man. Brother Jian, he insisted on coming, Tang Jinchuan expressed helplessly. Wang Gangjian turned to the pallid man before him and sighed gently. Zhuang Chong, with such severe injuries, you should not be here.
The man was Zhuang Chong.
After he and Sun Meng had escorted Zheng Baoshan back to the Linjiang Province Institute of Life Sciences, he had received orders to lead a Linjiang military squad southward once more to aid Black Blade security in clearing advanced zombies from East Lake City. Yet, they had scarcely traversed the highway when a pack of gargantuan wolves ambushed them. Apart from him, the rest of the squad perished. Zhuang Chong, a first-level superhuman with formidable physical prowess, had managed to escape and hide, narrowly evading the wolves' pursuit and finally reaching Black Blade security.
He bellowed, I must go.
The brethren of the Linjiang army cannot perish in vain. Wang Gangjian firmly shook his head. No, your wounds are too grievous. It is best you remain here to heal. Once you are mended, you shall have your chance for vengeance. Zhuang Chong gritted his teeth. My gift is the wood spirit, I can scout through the plants. Are you not seeking to ascertain the reality of those giant wolves? I am most apt for this task. Wang Gangjian and the others exchanged looks, one eyebrow arched. Supernatural talents are indeed diverse and peculiar, each individual being unique. Zhuang Chong's capability to employ plants as his scouts was indeed most suitable for the mission. Wang Gangjian nodded solemnly. Very well, then accompany us, and we will safeguard you throughout. If you stumble upon this narrative on Amazon, be aware that it has been stolen from Royal Road.
Please report it.
At that, Zhuang Chong finally allowed a small smile to surface and boarded the vehicle. The van dusted the road behind and sped directly towards the northernmost highway leading to East Lake City. East Lake City was but a modest town, its only conduit to the Linjiang forces being the highway that spanned its length. Every instance of support from the Linjiang military had traversed this very route. Should an alternative path be adopted, both efficiency and safety would markedly decline. Thus, all impediments along this highway needed to be eradicated, including the extraordinary animals that had evolved under the influence of psionic forces. As Wang Gangjian and his companions departed from Black Blade Security, a sword's hum resonated above the highway amidst the mists.
A figure emerged, Chu Xuan.
Chu Xuan chose a flat segment of the road to alight upon. The highway appeared frequently traveled, with abandoned vehicles dragged to the sides. With a casual gesture, Long, Hu and 6 corpse puppets materialized beside him. "Where were you ambushed?" Chu Xuan inquired. Hu roared and gestured ahead. Chu Xuan nodded and strode forward rapidly. Covering several hundred meters in the blink of an eye, he reached a pickup truck that had broken down, its tracks suggesting it had been no more than 3 days. Linjiang Army was emblazoned across the truck's surface, which bore numerous claw marks. Surrounding it were signs of a skirmish and scattered blood. Additionally, he observed several patches of wolf fur. Suddenly, a faint sound emerged from the woods on the right side of the highway. It seemed to be a cry for help. Chu Xuan's eyebrows raised, and he walked briskly toward the source. Approaching closer, the sound clarified. It was the cry of an infant. His gaze swept through the woods, quickly locking onto a blood-stained pile of clothes. The pile was subtly quivering, the crying emanating from within. Chu Xuan hastened his steps. Long, Hu, and the other corpse puppets followed. Anyone who heard an infant's cry would feel a stir of compassion. Even the most heinous murderer might hesitate for a moment.
But Chu Xuan did not.
50 meters from the pile, his right hand was already conjuring a nether fire orb. When only 10 meters away, he abruptly raised his hand and hurled the orb.
Boom!
A loud explosion erupted. Both the clothes and trees were blasted into the air, along with splatters of fresh flesh.
Thud!
A piece of flesh, covered in hair, landed at Chu Xuan's feet. The hair was long and vigorous, clearly not human. It was, unmistakably, wolf fur. Psionics are indeed peculiar, teaching you to mimic an infant's cries to lure the unwitting, Chu Xuan remarked calmly. Unfortunately, your intellect remains lacking, he continued. There are no living humans near the highway. How could an abandoned infant's cry be so resonant? As his words fell, over a dozen figures emerged from the depths of the forest. Each one was over 3 meters tall with extraordinarily agile forms. With a light leap, they could cover 5 or 6 meters in distance. In the blink of an eye, they surrounded Chu Xuan and his subordinate corpse puppets from all directions. On a nearby boulder, a colossal wolf more than 5 meters in length and towering over 2 men stood silently, overlooking Chu Xuan. The cold, bloodthirsty gleam in its remaining eye revealed it as the Wolf King. Chu Xuan, intrigued, admired the Wolf King's robust musculature, his face breaking into a satisfied grin. This Wolf King must be a second-level supernatural animal. Among its pack, there were also several first-level supernatural animals. The rest of the giant wolves, although not supernatural creatures, far surpassed ordinary wild wolves in both size and ferocity. No wonder such a den of giant wolves stationed near the highway could ambush the soldiers of the Linjiang army passing through. As Chu Xuan observed the Wolf King, the beast assessed him in return. This human was different from many others it had encountered. Able to wield powerful fireballs and accompanied by several zombies, it gave the wolf a profound sense of danger. But after a brief contemplation, the instinct born of nature overwhelmed reason. The wolf and its pack had fled from Two Dragon City on the northwest side of East Lake City, having been starved for a long while. The soldiers they had killed 2 days prior had barely sufficed to sate their hunger. Now, with living humans before them, there was no logic in avoiding battle.
Roar!
The Wolf King bellowed, and the surrounding dozen giant wolves surged forward aggressively. Chu Xuan stood motionless, casually ordering, "Keep the stronger wolves alive, kill the rest." Long, Hu, and the 6 corpse puppets received their commands in an instant. A fierce gleam flashed in their eyes as they fiercely lunged forward. In just a moment, the pack was routed. After all, most of them were not supernatural beings. But the corpse puppets crafted by Chu Xuan possessed innate magical abilities and were not of low standing. The weakest among them, whose innate magic was self-detonation, also possessed the prowess of a third-level corpse soldier. Together with Long and Hu, these ferocious corpses made light work of the wolf pack. In the blink of an eye, the mournful whines of the giant wolves were heard. Chu Xuan glanced over casually. He noted that the weaker wolves had all been slain. The 4 that were first-level supernatural beings had their limbs broken and were thrown to the ground. Long and Hu swiftly moved behind the Wolf King, trapping it in a pincer movement. The Wolf King was taken aback. The shift in the situation was too swift. It had thought the advantage lay with it. Yet, in an instant, it had gone from being the encircler to the encircled.
Roar!
The Wolf King roared furiously, stomping the ground and charging directly at Chu Xuan. It had encountered superhumans in Two Dragon City who excelled in controlling supernatural creatures, but each one was physically weak. So it ignored Long Hu and the other corpse puppets, focusing its attack on Chu Xuan. In its view, killing this human quickly was the key to breaking free. With its speed, the corpses would surely be unable to keep up. After all, how could 2 legs compare with its 4? You have a brain, but not much of it, Chu Xuan said with a light smile. This Wolf King had obviously realized that he controlled the corpse puppets. Eliminate him, and the corpses would fall apart. Regrettably, he was no frail summoner like those often depicted in novels. Mighty summoned beasts paired with a weak summoner. If he did not possess substantial strength, how could he possibly control the likes of Long and Hu? Chu Xuan remained where he was, utterly still. He could already see the Wolf King's sharp fangs, the drool flowing, and the foul stench of its breath as it bore down upon him. Swoosh! A line of blood flashed by. In that moment, it seemed as though a giant club had fiercely struck the Wolf King's head. They say wolves have a skull of copper and a backbone of tofu. Their most vulnerable part is the waist, and the hardest, the head. But with sufficient force, even a blow to the head could stun a wolf. Stolen from its original source, this story is not meant to be on Amazon. Report any sightings. Thump. In an instant, the Wolf King was knocked unconscious, collapsing senseless to the ground. The battle had ended before it even began. Long observed everything, promptly shelving any mischievous thoughts and daring not to entertain any disrespect. Carry them up, take them all back, Chu Xuan said casually. Roar. The corpse puppets bellowed in unison. They hoisted the wolf corpses and the unconscious giant wolves onto their shoulders, following behind Chu Xuan. Occasionally, they sneakily licked the wolf corpses, much like children stealthily tasting sweets behind their parents' backs. On the way back to Haotai Hotel, Chu Xuan didn't ride his flying sword. After all, with so many corpse puppets to manage, it indeed wasn't feasible to use the flying sword to transport them. This time returning to Mystic Azure Realm, if there's a chance, I must exchange for a new flying magic tool, he mused. Preferably a high-quality one. Chu Xuan noted this task in his mind as he strode back. With his party's strength, they could freely stroll through the city without fear of zombie attacks. Indeed, perhaps it was the zombies that should be worried. After all, in Chu Xuan's eyes, each zombie was a potential source of blood pearls. Should any enthusiastic zombies come their way, Chu Xuan would surely thank them tearfully for their gifts. At 3 in the afternoon that day, at the border between East Lake City and Two Dragon City, a van approached from afar and stopped where the pickup had broken down. Wang Gangjian, Wang Yong, Song Dei, and Zhuang Chong alighted from the vehicle. Zhuang Chong, injured, was protectively encircled by the others. All 4 were extremely vigilant. Zhuang Chong gazed at the pickup truck with a sorrowful expression. My 5 comrades died right here. I watched helplessly as they were dragged away by the wolves. I must personally skin those beasts. Wang Gangjian sighed softly. Before the zombie crisis erupted, he had served several years as a soldier in the Linjiang army, achieving the rank of sergeant, and commanding 10 soldiers under him. He could empathize with Zhuang Chong's seething rage. The pain of watching his cheerful, playful comrades fall in battle was more than most could bear. Take me to the edge of the forest. I can detect if any of those creatures are around, Zhuang Chong said, taking a deep breath, his voice serious. The 3 men nodded and escorted him to the forest's edge. Zhuang Chong placed his hand on the surface of a tree and closed his eyes. He could communicate with only one tree at a time. Branches, leaves, and roots became his eyes and ears. He could sense the memories of this tree. In places where the soil was fertile and the climate moist, the relationship between a tree's roots and its crown was almost 1-to-1. That is to say, the roots spread as wide as the crown above. Thus, he could perceive everything within the reach of the roots clearly through the tree. I hear heavy breathing, lots of it. It's those wolves. But not now, it was a few hours ago, around noon. I also heard zombie roars and intense fighting sounds. The battle ended quickly. I heard the death whimpers of giant wolves. And human voices. Zhuang Chong's use of his talent lasted only 3 minutes, yet he was drenched in sweat, his front and back soaked. Wang Gangjian and the others were astounded. You mean there was a battle here a few hours ago? Wang Yong added, a battle between humans and the wolf pack. Zhuang Chong nodded. I'm certain it was a fight between humans and wolves, with zombies involved as well. The wolves likely suffered heavy losses. The 3 men exchanged surprised glances. Someone had actually taken on this wolf pack head-on and won. The leading Wolf King, it's a second-level supernatural being, right? There's a second-level superhuman in East Lake City who could match the Wolf King. Wang Gangjian scratched his buzz cut, his face a picture of confusion. I've been in East Lake City for so many years, how did I not know this? The wolves, having suffered heavy losses, probably won't come out to hunt. We should search around here. We'll definitely find the site of the battle, Wang Yong said earnestly. Alright, let's split up to search, but don't go too far from each other. If you encounter danger, shout loudly, Wang Gangjian nodded. The four split into 3 groups. Wang Gangjian and Wang Yong each went solo, while Song Dei stayed with Zhuang Chong. They began their search and before long, they found the site of the battle. My God! The scene before them left them all stunned. They saw towering trees shattered into fragments, their surfaces charred by flames. The ground was littered with flesh and fur from the giant wolves. The 4 men all wore expressions as if they had seen a ghost. The pack of giant wolves was formidable, such that even well-trained Linjiang army squads were no match for them. However, the carnage strewn about clearly demonstrated the ferocity of the battle. No fewer than 5 or 6 giant wolves could have caused such a splatter of flesh and blood. It's impossible, who could have killed them? Zhuang Chong muttered incredulously. Wang Gangjian thought for a moment. Let's continue searching around this center. If any wolves escaped, there should be traces. Wang Yong and the others nodded and resumed their search. However, despite a long search, they found no signs of any wolves escaping. There were no toppled trees, no mottled bloodstains, nothing. What this implied was clear. Wang Yong swallowed hard. All those giant wolves are dead, and their bodies have been taken away. Although Wang Gangjian and Song Dei found it hard to believe, they nodded in agreement with his conclusion. It looks like we've made a wasted trip, Song Dei said, somewhat relieved. No fight meant no casualties. That was preferable to any alternative. Even as a first-level superhuman, any injury could lead to infection. Now, without any doctors around, they could only rely on medicine for self-treatment. Who knew if they would survive? Wang Gangjian was still scratching his head. Brother, what are you worried about? Wang Yong asked. Wang Gangjian gave a wry smile. Zhuang Chong mentioned that the wolf pack's leader is a second-level supernatural being. Besides, there are several first-level supernatural beings in the pack. That someone has the strength to take down such a group of giant wolves, what kind of power does he possess? A third-level superhuman. Zhuang Chong immediately shook his head. Impossible, third-level superhumans are extremely rare. Without exception, they are all leaders and protectors of various organizations. They aim to break through to the 4th level and need a lot of manpower to collect psionic cores. Why would a third-level superhuman be wandering alone outside? Wang Gangjian, Wang Yong, and Song Dei thought it over. It made sense. No third-level superhuman would frivolously run about. Almost all of them stayed in their territories, employing every means to elevate themselves. Zhuang Chong pondered for a moment before speaking. Perhaps it's just a second-level superhuman but with an exceptionally powerful talent. After all, talents vary widely. Those with exceptionally strong talents can even help superhumans fight above their level. Wang Gangjian sighed softly. Regardless, we must be cautious. The Haotai Hotel is occupied by 2 high-level zombies, and now a mysterious second-level superhuman has appeared. Our days at Blackblade are becoming even tougher. The 4 men reboard the van, speeding off as dusk had not yet fallen.
Haotai Hotel.
This content has been misappropriated from Royal Road. Report any instances of this story if found elsewhere. Chu Xuan leisurely made his way back here. Along the route, he had eliminated a number of zombies and refined quite a few blood pearls. Moreover, he browsed through numerous supermarkets and shops, scouting for any edible food. Eating instant noodles every day was becoming tedious, and a change in diet would certainly be welcome. However, Chu Xuan only managed to find some chocolate. He had learned that the zombie crisis on Blue Star had been raging for over 5 years. Few foods could withstand a 5-year shelf life. It seems if I want to enjoy delicious meals there, I might have to start growing my own vegetables, Chu Xuan mused. This was not a difficult task for him. All that was needed was to set up a spirit gathering array to draw in the sparse spiritual chi from the surroundings. Even the most barren soil could be transformed into fertile land under such conditions. This land could then be termed a spirit field. Crops grown in a spirit field would develop unusually quickly, and the fruits they bore were exceptionally tasty. As for the laborious tasks of plowing, weeding, pest control and harvesting, these could be entirely delegated to the corpse puppets. Although dim-witted corpse puppets, once properly instructed, were far more suitable for such monotonous and repetitive labor than humans. No sooner said than done. There was a garden at the back of Haotai Hotel, and Chu Xuan ordered that all the flowers and plants be uprooted and the soil loosened. Only then did he set about arranging the spirit gathering array. The spiritual chi on Blue Star was extremely weak, nowhere near comparable to that on Mystic Azure Realm. But even the slightest presence of spiritual chi could be harnessed by the spirit gathering array. If necessary, Spirit stones could be placed within the array to extract their spiritual chi and nourish the soil. By sunset, Chu Xuan had the spirit field ready. The field, spanning 40 meters wide and 30 meters long, was divided into several sections, each planted with different spiritual plants. Golden pattern rice, similar to regular rice but with a far superior taste. Dawn wheat, akin to wheat but its long-term consumption can make the body lighter and more agile. Chu Xuan, having selected various spiritual plants from his cultivation bag, handed them to the corpse puppets for sowing. Initially clumsy, the corpses soon grew proficient under his patient guidance. Not bad at all, Chu Xuan nodded in approval. Then, he ascended on his sword to the rooftop. The Wolf King and the 4 giant wolves were securely bound. While the 4 wolves were still unconscious, the Wolf King was awake, its eye flickering with a brutal light, as if it wished it could tear Chu Xuan apart 10,000 times. Chu Xuan completely disregarded such glares. As before, he took out a small knife and began to make incisions on the Wolf King. He started with the limb joints, then the abdomen, and finally the crown of the head. The flesh from these 3 areas varied, making them suitable for the growth of different spiritual plants. In the limb joints and the abdomen, Chu Xuan inserted seeds of the soul-nourishing leaf and crimson blood fruit. Closest to the brain, the crown of the head was ideal for the life soul flower seeds. The life soul flower was a primary ingredient for foundation establishment blood pills, while soul-nourishing leaves and crimson blood fruits were rare supplementary materials. With these 3 types of spiritual medicine secured, nearly all other necessary herbs could be purchased from reputable markets using spirit stones. His foundation establishment blood pill was nearly within reach. My path to foundation establishment relies on you. Chu Xuan patted the Wolf King's head and chuckled. The Wolf King could feel its vitality being sapped by the strange plants, but it was powerless, forced to watch its own life force ebb away. As for the 4 giant wolves, Chu Xuan applied the same procedure, implanting spiritual plants within them. However, since they were only first-level supernatural beings, he did not use particularly rare plants. After completing these tasks, Chu Xuan returned to the ground floor of the Haotai Hotel to set up more formations. First, he installed a mist array. This was a mid-tier chi refining stage formation. Its function was simple: to generate a mist that enveloped both the inside and outside of the array, covering a circular area with a diameter of about 100 zhong, approximately 330 meters. This range was sufficient to encompass not only the Haotai Hotel but also some nearby residences and shops. Anyone who wandered into the mist array would find themselves disoriented, wandering aimlessly before being sent back to the entrance, perpetually unable to penetrate deeper into the formation. Next, he began to set up a gathering evil array. The so-called evil chi is the malevolent and vile aura released upon the death of living beings. Righteous cultivators usually avoid it at all costs, while demonic cultivators often seek it out. For a demonic cultivator like Chu Xuan, evil chi has a wide array of uses. It can be infused into magical tools, employed in offense and defense, and even utilized in cultivation. Setting up the gathering evil array at the Haotai Hotel served 2 purposes: to gather evil chi for his own use and to automatically repel intruders who tried to penetrate deeper into the mist array. It was midnight by the time Chu Xuan had both arrays properly arranged. With the gathering evil array in place, along with the corpse puppets he had left behind, it would be difficult for anyone to infiltrate the Haotai Hotel. This secured his base of operations. Could this place be considered my cave dwelling? Chu Xuan suddenly chuckled. Who would have thought that my cave dwelling wouldn't be on Mystic Azure Realm but on a post-apocalyptic planet? Moments later, he returned to the rooftop. He stored Long and Bao back in the tower. You will command the 6 corpse puppets and the 2 dogs. After I leave, guard the Haotai Hotel well. If you're hungry, go out and hunt zombies, but don't stir up trouble. Nod if you understand, Chu Xuan instructed.
Roar roar.
Who responded in a deep voice, nodding repeatedly. Its intelligence had grown significantly over time, now comparable to that of a 7 or 8-year-old human child. It understood everything Chu Xuan said. Chu Xuan felt reassured about leaving Hu in charge. Hu was his first corpse puppet and the most stable and obedient. After one last look around, Chu Xuan retrieved the blood mirror from his storage bag. The mirror's energy was fully charged and ready for use at any moment. He had only delayed his departure to ensure everything was properly set up. Chu Xuan gently touched the blood mirror, and it abruptly engulfed him. In an instant, his figure vanished from the rooftop. Hu growled softly, suddenly feeling a sense of loss. Its master had left, gone far away. Now, it was up to Hu to protect the master's cave dwelling. It resolved that no evildoers would come near. In Mystic Azure Realm, within a cavern, Chu Xuan's figure appeared without warning. He surveyed his surroundings. The last time he departed, It was from this very cave, then occupied by a bear. Today, it remained unchanged. Sensing the area, Chu Xuan detected no presence of cultivators nearby. He retrieved the array flag set up previously and pushed aside the boulder blocking the cave entrance. Instantly, sunlight streamed in, the air clear and the breeze gentle. He took a deep breath, and the rich spiritual chi filled his lungs, refreshing his spirit. I have 3 objectives this time, he mused. First, to purchase a cauldron suitable for concocting foundation establishment blood pills. Second, to acquire the various spiritual herbs needed for the pills. Third, to purchase a high-quality flying magical tool. Stolen from Royal Road, this story should be reported if encountered on Amazon. Using a technique to alter his appearance, Chu Xuan headed towards the Peace Market nearby. Indeed, he was returning to Peace Market. Since the Divine Star Sect had already scoured the area once and raided the Wu family estate, they were unlikely to take further action against the Peace Market.
Thus, it was safe.
Once again, he arrived at the market square. The market was as usual, unaffected by the grand schemes of the major righteous sections. At most, it provided some extra gossip during meals. This time, Chu Xuan adopted the guise of a noble young man with a striking appearance. However, his slanted eyebrows and hawk-like nose gave him a sharp, intimidating aura. Clearly, he was not someone to be trifled with. As before, Chu Xuan didn't rush to make his purchases but instead made his way to a tea house within Peace Market. He chose his seat carefully. Not only was it by the window, but it also offered a clear view of the square's north and south entrances. This allowed him to notice any disturbances quickly. While sipping tea, Chu Xuan listened attentively to the conversations of other cultivators using a technique that enhanced his hearing. Soon, he had gathered information about the recent events. 10 days, Chu Xuan smiled lightly. He had spent 3 months on Blue Star, but only 10 days had passed on Mystic Azure Realm. To the cultivators here, it seemed he had advanced from the 6th to the 9th level of chi refining in a mere flick of the fingers. This rate of progression, even among peerless geniuses, would be envied and unmatched. Chu Xuan's brow suddenly raised, his eyes flicking to a corner where an old man and a young boy sat. Their faces were unfamiliar to him. Upon closer inspection, he noticed traces of disguise techniques. More importantly, he overheard their conversation. Senior Brother Wei, do you think Zhong Chong will come? Is there a chance he has turned to the Divine Star Sect and become a traitor? That's why we're using disguises and waiting here instead of meeting him directly. We need to observe the surroundings first, don't you get it?
Oh, I understand.
It's 1:15 noon now, our appointed time is at 1:45. He should be arriving soon. Stay close and follow my lead when the time comes.
All right.
In almost an instant, Chu Xuan guessed the identity of the 2 men. They were chi refining stage disciples from the Infinite Sect, Chen Gu and Wei Hua. As for Zhang Cheng, Chu Xuan remembered him too. Among the chi refining stage disciples, Zhang was a notorious broker, best known for selling second-hand magical tools passed down from senior disciples. Chu Xuan's own flying sword was acquired through Zhang Cheng. Since it was second-hand, it was cheaper by 10 to 20%. The last time Divine Star Sect raided the Wu family estate, it seems they survived and are still alive. And now they appear in Peace Market. I get it, they are still hiding with the Wu family, which suggests that the Wu family isn't wholly aligned with the Divine Star Sect. Chu Xuan tapped the tabletop lightly, sorting through his thoughts quietly and quickly organizing his reasoning.
Going to Zhongcheng to buy items?
That's quite bold. Chu Xuan shook his head slightly. In times like these, anyone could turn traitor. Reconnecting with disciples separated from the Infinite Sect could lead not to the items needed but to an ambush by righteous cultivators. I can't stay in Peace Market any longer, I must leave immediately. Even if Zhong Cheng isn't a traitor, he might still attract unwanted attention. If they get tangled up with me, it would be troublesome. Chu Xuan stood up immediately. His relationship with Chen Gu and Wei Hua was that of senior brothers, merely casual acquaintances rather than close friends. In unclear and potentially dangerous situations, the first priority was naturally to ensure his own safety. However, as Chu Xuan's gaze swept past the window, he noticed a figure striding towards the entrance of Peace Market. The man carried a blood-stained package and emanated a fierce killing intent. Yet, his handsome face wore a warm smile, seemingly approachable. 2 starkly contrasting temperaments manifested in one person. Chu Xuan sighed softly.
Here it comes.
Trouble had arrived, faster than he had anticipated. The young cultivator, carrying dual swords on his back and a perpetual smile on his face, was known for this demeanor only among the chi refining stage disciples of the Divine Star Sect. This was Ouyang Hao, ranked 4th among the inner disciples of the sect. In just 5 years since joining the sect, he had rapidly advanced to the 8th level of chi refining. What made him most notorious was his merciless stance against demonic cultivators. He killed them on sight without hesitation. After the 5 sects campaign against demons, 3 of the top 10 inner disciples of the Infinite Sect had fallen to Ouyang Hao. Such was his reputation that the remaining disciples of the Infinite Sect would rather face a Foundation Establishment stage cultivator than encounter Ouyang Hao. With righteous cultivators, there might be a chance of survival, but Ouyang Hao was known for his lethal resolve. The Grand Elder of the Divine Star Sect had praised Ouyang Hao profusely, declaring that once Ouyang Hao achieved Foundation Establishment, he would take him as his direct disciple. Ouyang Hao was indeed a rising star within the Divine Star Sect, with even those ranked above him in the chi refining stage not entirely confident they could best him. His arrival at Peace Market was surely not for mundane shopping. Chu Xuan was not particularly worried about Ouyang Hao himself. With his current strength, defeating Ouyang Hao would not pose much difficulty. His concern was whether Ouyang Hao was accompanied by others, perhaps even a Foundation Establishment stage cultivator from the Divine Star Sect lurking in the background. That would complicate matters significantly. After considering his options, Chu Xuan decided to hold his ground and adapt to the situation as it evolved. Click, clack. Ouyang Hao made his way directly toward the tea house. As a cultivator exited the tea house and recognized him, he exclaimed in shock, "Ouyang Hao." Ouyang Hao raised an eyebrow at the man and smiled. "Do you realize you've just ruined everything?" Before the cultivator could respond, Ouyang Hao swiftly drew his sword. With a flash of his blade, the man's legs were severed at the knees. "I don't know if you're associated with demonic cultivators, but I'll spare your life for now. We'll interrogate you later," Ouyang Hao declared, ignoring the man's screams as he hastened into the tea house. Inside, Chen Gu and Wei Hua, who had been anxiously awaiting Zhang Cheng's arrival and were vigilantly monitoring their surroundings, caught the commotion at the entrance. "Ouyang Hao." The two exchanged a look of alarm and promptly stood up, leaping out of a nearby window to escape the impending danger. Chu Xuan remained seated, motionless, continuing his tea in quiet repose. Within mere moments, Ouyang Hao ascended to the 2nd floor of the tea house. His gaze swept searchingly over each cultivator present. "What are you staring at?" An irate cultivator, unable to bear the scrutiny, barked sharply. Ouyang Hao, silent, drew his sword in response. A flash of the blade, the cultivator's right arm was severed cleanly at the shoulder. Amidst the disbelieving screams of the injured man, Ouyang Hao spoke coolly, "Ouyang Hao of the Divine Star Sect, pursuing the remnants of the Infinite Sect. If you encounter this story on Amazon, note that it's taken without permission from the author. Report it. Did anyone leave just now?" His sword now pointed ominously at the other shoulder of the man, as if indicating that a similar fate awaited the other limb should he remain uncooperative. "Yes." 2 people jumped out the window and ran south. The unfortunate cultivator cried out in terror. Frowning, Ouyang Hao dashed to the window. True enough, he saw 2 figures mounting their flying magical tools, making their escape. Without hesitation, Ouyang Hao hurled a flying sword into the air and mounted it, pursuing them swiftly. The cultivators inside the tea house were shaken, their discussions buzzing with questions about who Ouyang Hao was to act so audaciously. Upon learning his identity, they collectively gasped, falling silent. This was the Divine Star Sect's chi refining stage prodigy, almost assured of becoming a direct disciple of the Grand Elder. With such stature, who would dare provoke him? The cultivator, whose arm had been cut off, grimacing in pain, quickly tried to stop his bleeding. It was a bitter pill to swallow, one he had no choice but to endure internally. Chu Xuan, observing all, remained seated, pondering the situation. It appears Ouyang Hao is alone. What a ripe target. After a brief contemplation, Chu Xuan mounted his own flying sword and stealthily followed. In the sky, 3 streaks of light chased each other. Chen Gu and Wei Hua, equipped with only mid-grade flying magical tools, were soon at a disadvantage. Ouyang Hao, as a favored genius of the Divine Star Sect, possessed superior magical equipment. His flying tool was of the highest quality, accentuating the disparity. Naturally, it didn't take long for Ouyang Hao to catch up to the duo. "Scum of the Infinite Sect, meet your demise." Ouyang Hao's face maintained a warm smile, yet his tone was vicious. He brought his fingers together and thrust forward repeatedly. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several spear-like spirit fingers shot forth. This was the renowned Spirit Sword Finger, a mid-tier spell of the chi refining stage from the Divine Star Sect. Its advantages were low spiritual chi consumption, long attack distance, and rapid execution. The downside was its moderate power. However, it was most suitable for pursuit attacks. In an instant, the spirit sword fingers surged forward like a torrential curtain of rain. The 2 opponents' pupils constricted as they dodged with all their might, yet they could only evade some of the attacks. Their space to maneuver dwindled rapidly, soon leaving them no room to escape. They were forced to conjure a sinister, small shield behind them. This was the Mystic Nether Shield, a defensive spell essential for the Qi refining stage disciples of the Infinite Sect. However, being merely at the 4th level of Qi refining, how could they compare to the 8th level Ouyang Hao? The Mystic Nether Shield managed to block 2 Spirit Sword Fingers before shattering abruptly. The remaining Spirit Sword Fingers struck mercilessly, blasting their flying magic tool and splitting it in two, causing them to plummet towards the ground. Ouyang Hao pursued them without hesitation. Moments later, in a clearing within the forest, Ouyang Hao, looking at the pale-faced Chen Gu and Wei Hua, smiled. He casually threw a blood-stained bundle at them. A severed head rolled out from the bundle, the eyes of Zhong Cheng wide open in death. I encountered this young man while on a mission. He really was stubborn, refusing to speak to the very end. I severed his limbs and threw him into an anthill to suffer the agony of thousands of bites until he finally spoke, Ouyang Hao stated indifferently. Upon witnessing Zhong Cheng's ghastly death, Chen Gu and Wei Hua felt an overwhelming sense of despair. You two are truly weak, sneered Ouyang Hao. You couldn't even handle a single move of my spirit sword finger. Capturing you and taking you back to the sect wouldn't even earn me much merit. It would be easier just to kill you. Smiling, Ouyang Hao drew the twin swords from his back. Suddenly, a gust of wind struck. His expression shifted slightly as he swiftly drew his sword and slashed behind him. Clang! A stone was abruptly sent flying. Approaching him was a cultivator with a face as fine as white jade, though his features were not gentle but rather sharp and piercing. The appearance of this pale-faced man momentarily stunned Chen Gu and Wei Hua. Could someone actually be coming to their rescue?
You seem somewhat capable.
Which scum of the Infinite Sect are you? Ouyang Hao scrutinized the newcomer, Chu Xuan, and inquired. He felt a hint of threat emanating from this pale-faced man, a clear sign of formidable strength. Chu Xuan replied with equanimity, I go by the name Su Ming and do not shy from it. Ouyang Hao offered a faint smile. Su Ming? Good, you shall become the 25th soul to fall beneath my sword.
Su Ming?
Chen Gu and Wei Hua exchanged a look of confusion. Su Ming was still cultivating in the Wu family estate. How could he possibly be here? The person before them must be an Infinite Sect disciple, concealing his real name and assuming the alias of Su Ming.
Are you still watching?
Go, Chu Xuan chided them with a glance. Chen Gu and Wei Hua exchanged a deep look, then quickly supported each other and left. Ouyang Hao licked his lips. You let my two prey escape. You'd better put up a good fight, or I'll make you wish you were dead. With that, he suddenly swung his sword at Chu Xuan. Chu Xuan smiled lightly, you've got it backward. He waved his hand, and Long and Bao suddenly appeared by his side, flanking Ouyang Hao from both sides. From the palm of his hand surged a fierce streak of crimson, the blood steel wire. Ouyang Hao's eyes flashed with disdain. Divine Star Sect sword cultivators specialized in sword Qi. Qi refining disciples cultivated heavenly star sword Qi, which could cut through anything. Nothing was invincible against it. To think you would use a mere goo insect to counter my sword Qi, I have already slain 3 such fools, Ouyang Hao declared. His sword Qi accelerated, seemingly about to sever the blood steel wire in an instant. He disregarded the 2 corpse puppets closing in from either side. Eliminating this foolhardy demonic cultivator with a single strike would spare him any further effort, and the puppets would perish as a consequence. However, the next moment, he felt his sword Qi strike what seemed like steel. Clang! To his shock, his indomitable sword Qi was effortlessly blocked by the blood steel wire. Chu Xuan smiled faintly. After its transformation, the blood steel wire was harder than most metals. The blood steel wire could even withstand bullets, faster and more formidable than Ouyang Hao's sword Qi. Blocking Ouyang Hao's sword Qi was no daunting task. The blood steel wire, far from being repelled, emitted a streak of bloody light and wrapped around Ouyang Hao's wrists and ankles, blood binding. Clang! Caught unawares, Ouyang Hao found his hands and feet momentarily bound. His anger was palpable. He had not anticipated that the goo insect would possess such innate magical prowess. At that moment, Long and Bao launched their attack from either side. Long opened its maw wide and unleashed a terrifying corpse howl. The sound struck Ouyang Hao like a sledgehammer to his soul, muddling his senses and scattering his thoughts. The tail has been stolen. If detected on Amazon, report the violation. Spurred by the corpse howl, Bao let out a ferocious roar and activated its bloodthirst technique. Its claws relentlessly tore at Ouyang Hao, and in the blink of an eye, dozens of gory gashes were rent across his body. Blood spurted wildly, and flesh flew in disarray. Long, with a firm grip on its bone spear, thrust it forward. The spear pierced straight through the heart. Ouyang Hao's eyes bulged in utter shock. He had not foreseen such an abrupt end to the battle. His underestimation of the Gu's resilience had swiftly led to his entrapment and a swift, merciless death. He had no chance to retaliate, no opportunity to utter any last words. Life drained from him like water flowing from a broken vessel, and the cold embrace of death quickly consumed him. Chu Xuan gestured, recalling Long and bow back into the corpse-nurturing tower. He gazed down at Ouyang Hao's corpse, shaking his head. The man had been strong, yet his arrogance had been his downfall. Without any knowledge of his opponent's capabilities, he had left himself completely unguarded against the corpse puppets attacking from either side, foolishly believing his sword chi could achieve a swift kill. Is this what they call a genius? Chu Xuan chuckled softly and casually scooped up Ouyang Hao's body into his storage bag. The body of a chi refining 8th level cultivator was a valuable resource, perfect for refining blood beads or feeding to his corpse puppets. With that, he swiftly departed from the scene. At the Wu family estate, Chen Gu and Wei Hua returned to their usual residence through a side gate, finally letting out sighs of relief. Lu Zhengxiong was in the courtyard, discussing cultivation challenges with Su Ming, Bai Feng, and others. Seeing the grim expressions on Chen Gu and Wei Hua's faces, he guessed something was amiss and promptly inquired about their ordeal. Chen Gu and Wei Hua did not conceal any details, recounting the events that had unfolded. Lu Zhengxiong's brow furrowed deeply. Su Ming, taken aback, exclaimed, "That person claimed to be me? Could it be one of our Infinite Sect disciples?" Wei Hua nodded affirmatively, "It's very likely," and he seemed quite confident, showing no fear even against Ouyang Hao. Su Ming shook his head subconsciously, "Impossible. The top 10 inner disciples are either dead or have defected. None could match Ouyang Hao. How odd that someone would dare to rescue you," Lu Zhengxiong remarked, his face showing a keen interest. "Regardless, this person is most likely a disciple of our Infinite Sect. It's surprising that such a disciple was overlooked. If he dared to confront Ouyang Hao, his strength must be considerable." Lu Zhengxiong paced back and forth, clearly pleased. Su Ming, somewhat envious, commented, "Who knows? Maybe he just got carried away in the heat of the moment." Wei Hua scoffed, "If it were you, would you get carried away and save us? I doubt it, you'd probably have run away at the first chance." Su Ming's face turned red with embarrassment, but he found himself unable to refute. After pondering for a moment, Lu Zhengxiong said, "Where did Ouyang Hao catch up to you? Take me there immediately. We cannot let anything happen to such a disciple." Chen Gu and Wei Hua immediately nodded in agreement. Moments later, the trio arrived at the clearing in the woods. The area was deserted, indicating that the battle had clearly concluded long ago. Could the fight have moved to another location? Chen Gu scratched his head. Lu Zhengxiong shook his head, pointing at the bloodstains, fragments of flesh, and pieces of robes on the ground. "The battle has ended. These robe fragments belong to a Divine Star Sect Chi refining stage disciple. The blood and flesh were likely left by Ouyang Hao. There's a dense yin Chi in the air, likely from summoning corpse puppets to fight." Lu Zhengxiong thought for a long time. Ouyang Hao likely escaped with severe injuries. Chen Gu and Wei Hua exchanged looks of surprise that the cultivator could have inflicted such damage on Ouyang Hao. What kind of power must he possess? Ouyang Hao's injuries will certainly prompt the Divine Star Sect to conduct another round of searches in this area. "Stay indoors these next few days and remain within the estate," Lu Zhengxiong instructed sternly. "Yes, we will heed Uncle Master's teachings," Chen Gu and Wei Hua nodded. "And what about you, Uncle Master?" Wei Hua inquired. Lu Zhengxiong replied earnestly, "That disciple must still be near Peace Market, and being alone, he is undoubtedly in grave danger. I must find him." Chen Gu and Wei Hua felt a surge of admiration. They had chosen to follow Lu Zhengxiong because of his humanity. They had not expected that even for a disciple whose name they did not know, Lu Zhengxiong would be willing to risk so much. Chu Xuan returned to the cave that had been his previous abode. He moved a large rock back in place to seal the entrance and set up various arrays before opening Ouyang Hao's storage bag. A cursory glance nearly blinded him with its brilliance, indeed befitting a prodigy cherished by the Grand Elder of the Divine Star Sect. The contents of the bag were dazzling. The first thing that caught his eye was a small mountain of small spiritual stones. A rough count revealed there were at least 1,000. Beside these were numerous medium spiritual stones, adding up to over 20. Apart from these spiritual stones, there were several tomes kept in jade boxes, all scriptures and magical techniques of the Divine Star Sect, albeit solely for sword cultivation. Chu Xuan flipped through them briefly without much interest. Also in the bag were 2 magical tools. The first was the flying sword that Ouyang Hao had wielded. Named the Heavenly Star Flying Sword, it was a high-grade flying magical tool capable of covering 1,000 li in an hour, consuming only 1 small spiritual stone for 3,000 li, and capable of increasing speed for short bursts by consuming more stones. In the cultivation world perspective, I would use ancient Chinese units. 1 li equals 0.5 kilometer. 1 zhong equals 3 meters. In contrast, Chu Xuan's own flying tool could only cover 300 li in an hour, consuming a small spiritual stone for every 1,000 li without any acceleration feature. The comparison left his own tool utterly outclassed. The second item was a golden wooden shield. Despite being made of wood, it felt exceptionally hard to the touch. This tool, named the Goldenwood Shield, was crafted from Vajra wood and was also a superior grade magical tool. Its defensive capabilities ranked among the top of all superior defensive magical tools. These two items perfectly filled the gaps in Chu Xuan's current arsenal. Is that a Foundation Establishment pill? Chu Xuan continued to search and was astonished to find a Foundation Establishment pill in a corner of the storage bag. He was surprised. Given Ouyang Hao's financial capabilities, he should not have been able to afford such a pill. The origin of the pill was thus clear. It must have been bestowed by the Grand Elder of the Divine Star Sect for Ouyang Hao's future breakthrough. It seems the Grand Elder indeed highly valued Ouyang Hao, Chu Xuan mused with a smile. Nobody knew that he was the one who had slain Ouyang Hao. Even if the Grand Elder was enraged and wished to tear the murderer apart, he would find no trail leading to Chu Xuan. However, a single Foundation Establishment pill is probably not enough to liquefy my spiritual qi and help me step into the Foundation Establishment stage, Chu Xuan reflected. A Foundation Establishment blood pill is still necessary? He did not consider himself to possess the exceptional aptitude required to step into the Foundation Establishment stage with just one pill. Let's refine these immediately, converting them into my own combat strength, he decided. He secured the Foundation Establishment pill and extracted the Heavenly Star Flying Sword and Goldenwood Shield from the bag. Both items bore Ouyang Hao's essence blood imprint, a mark made by sacrificing one's essence blood to embed a personal trace into a magic tool, ensuring it could not be easily taken by others during battle. Better than an essence blood imprint was a soul blood imprint, which involved both the soul and essence blood, but that was a technique only accessible at the Foundation Establishment stage. At his current level, Chu Xuan could only use the essence blood imprint. He pressed his fingers against the surface of the Heavenly Star Flying Sword, injecting a wisp of spiritual qi to locate the essence blood imprint within. His spiritual qi eradicated it. Within about a quarter of an hour, he had completely erased Ouyang Hao's remaining essence blood imprint. Now truly ownerless, the Heavenly Star Flying Sword was ready for his use. Royal Road is the home of this novel. Visit there to read the original and support the author. Chu Xuan tapped his chest, drawing out a drop of his own essence blood, and let it fall on the sword surface, beginning the refinement process. The process took 3 hours in the utter darkness of the cave, Chu Xuan's eyes gleaming with sharp vitality. Success. He felt a tight connection to the Heavenly Star Flying Sword. He proceeded to similarly refine the Goldenwood Shield. After consecutively erasing essence blood imprints and forcing out his own essence blood to refine 2 superior grade magical tools, Chu Xuan felt somewhat exhausted. He immediately began meditating to rest. After a whole night, he slowly awakened, and his spirits rejuvenated. News of Ouyang Hao's death probably hasn't spread yet. While the Divine Star Sect hasn't noticed, I should quickly return to Peace Market and make the necessary purchases. Chu Xuan hastened towards the Peace Market. This time, he disguised himself again, taking on the appearance of a gaunt man with deeply sunken eyes, a look that suggested excessive consumption of medicinal pills and a body laden with residual poison. As he walked past various stalls set by itinerant cultivators, intending to buy spiritual herbs from the 100 Herbs Pavilion, he noticed a stall that seemed amiss. Astonishingly, it displayed several qi refining stage scriptures from the Infinite Sect, including the blood spirit technique he practiced. Additionally, most of the materials needed to concoct the Foundation Establishment blood pill were also somewhat available there. Chu Xuan immediately sensed something was off. With the Infinite Sect fallen, who could possibly offer so many spiritual herbs at once? It must be a trap, perhaps set by orthodox cultivators fishing for prey. Should he bite, his life might well be forfeit. Without betraying his suspicions, Chu Xuan quietly walked away. However, the white-haired stall owner suddenly spoke up. "Fellow Taoist, these are all top-quality goods. Won't you buy something?" Chu Xuan's internal alarm intensified. "No, thank you." The stall owner chuckled strangely. "What about the blood evil demon refining scripture? Don't you want to buy that either?" Chu Xuan started, turning sharply to look at the stall owner. This voice didn't come through his ears, it had resonated directly in his mind. This was a telepathic message. Telepathy was a technique that only Foundation Establishment stage cultivators could employ, allowing private communication that only the parties involved could hear. Unless someone far surpassed their cultivation levels, No one could intercept their conversation. The mention of the blood evil demon refining scripture was even more significant. It was a foundation establishment stage technique of the Infinite Sect. The blood spirit technique and 2 other chi refining stage techniques were actually preliminary techniques to the blood evil demon refining scripture. Uncle Master Lu? Chu Xuan instantly guessed the identity of the speaker. A foundation establishment stage cultivator, knowledgeable about the formula for the foundation establishment pill, and in possession of Infinite Sect's foundation establishment stage techniques, it could only be Lu Zhengxiong. The white-haired stall owner smiled. "Follow me." He gestured with his hand, storing the items in a storage ring, and then walked unhurriedly towards the exit of Peace Market. Chu Xuan hesitated but still followed. Moments later, the 2 of them, like any other cultivators, walked out of Peace Market. Only when they reached a secluded area did Lu Zhengxiong stop. "Are you Xiong Zhengxing or Lu Jinpeng?" he asked quietly. Chu Xuan could not help but smile wryly. These 2 were respectively the 12th and 13th ranked disciples within the inner gate of the Infinite Sect, formidable rivals during his struggle to secure the 10th position in the inner gate. However, by now, they had vanished without a trace, likely dead in some forgotten corner. Chu Xuan bowed respectfully. "Chu Xuan, at your service, Uncle Master Lu." Lu Zhengxiong, hearing this name, was quite astonished. "Chu Xuan? The 10th ranked Chu Xuan of the inner gate? I would never have imagined that the person who saved Chen Gu and Wei Hua and defeated Ouyang Hao could be you." Chu Xuan chuckled lightly without offering an explanation. During the destruction of the Infinite Sect, he was only at the 4th level of Qi refining. It was his extensive knowledge in Gu insects and poison techniques that had secured his place as the 10th inner gate disciple. It was no wonder Lu Zhengxiong hadn't guessed it was him. Lu Zhengxiong appraised Chu Xuan as if seeing this Qi refining stage junior for the first time. "What realm have you reached by now?" "At least the 8th level of Qi refining, right? I remember, back when the Infinite Sect was still standing, you were at the 4th level." "I didn't expect such significant progress," he said, his smile genuine. Chu Xuan nodded, though he did not admit that he had actually reached the 9th level of Qi refining. If Lu Zhengxiong thought he was at the 8th level, then so be it. Keeping some of his strength hidden was never a bad idea.
Very good.
Among the Qi refining stage disciples, you have the highest realm. Lu Zhengxiong's joy deepened. "Come with me to the Wu family estate. I will support you fully in your effort to reach the foundation establishment stage." Chu Xuan immediately shook his head.
What a joke.
He had to travel to the Blue Star periodically. How could he be around Infinite Sect disciples all the time? Constant contact with others would inevitably lead to the discovery of his secrets. His ability to freely travel between the Mystic Azure Realm and the Blue Star was his most crucial ace, which he could not afford to reveal to anyone. Lu Zhengxiong was taken aback. He had offered such substantial support, yet Chu Xuan had declined? His expression turned slightly sour. Chu Xuan quickly explained, "Uncle Master Lu, I am confident in my ability to concoct the Foundation Establishment blood pill and advance to the Foundation Establishment stage on my own. But if you were to expend resources to aid me in advancing, it might cause discontent among the other senior brothers and disciples. The Infinite Sect has fallen, and those of us who remain should work together in harmony. It would not be right to disrupt the unity of the sect's disciples for my sake alone." Lu Zhengxiong's eyes widened, touched by the sentiment. What a fine prospect. Strong-willed, independent, powerful, and considerate of others. How had he not noticed such a disciple before? If it were the old days, when the Infinite Sect was still flourishing, he would have surely asked his own master to invest heavily in Chu Xuan's cultivation. Resources would have been poured into helping him reach the foundation establishment stage swiftly. In doing so, the Infinite Sect's core foundation establishment stage strength would have been bolstered. But now, such support was difficult, all too difficult. As Chu Xuan had mentioned, the demonic cultivators were now weak, and resources were limited. Distributing all to Chu Xuan would naturally diminish the cultivation resources available to other disciples. People do not complain about scarcity as much as they complain about inequality. Favoring one person with resources over time would inevitably lead to discord and fragmentation among the disciples, which would be harmful in the long run. "You." Lu Zhengxiong struggled to find words. Chu Xuan bowed again. "I wish to rely on my own abilities. Please do not mention it further, Uncle Master." Lu Zhengxiong sighed deeply. If the sect were still in its prime, I would never stand by and watch such a talent be neglected. Chu Xuan felt relieved. Lu Zhengxiong's words meant that he would no longer insist on him staying with the other Infinite Sect disciples. If you encounter this narrative on Amazon, note that it's taken without the author's consent. Report it. Chu Xuan then said, "However, I indeed need the subsequent techniques. May I know what price Uncle Master desires for the blood evil demon refining scripture?" Lu Zhengxiong chuckled. No need to talk about the price. I have already transcribed several copies of the Blood Evil Demon Refining Scripture, and can give one to you directly. However, I still need to consider the needs of the sect's disciples. Do you have any blood beads? 100 blood beads, and the transcribed Blood Evil Demon Refining Scripture is yours. Chu Xuan was greatly moved. The Blood Evil Demon Refining Scripture was a foundation establishment stage technique, and even a transcribed copy would require 1,000 sect contribution points to exchange, equivalent to at least 2,500 small spiritual stones. 100 blood beads amounted to only 200 to 300 small spiritual stones. Lu Zhengxiong had deeply discounted the price of the technique, almost giving it away. However, even with 100 blood beads, Chu Xuan did not immediately produce them. He possessed them, but showing his hand too readily was unwise. After all, one must always guard against revealing too much, as human intentions can be hard to predict. Chu Xuan looked troubled. Uncle Master, I only have just over 50 blood beads. Can I make up the rest with spiritual stones? Lu Zhengxiong waved his hand. 50 is also fine, I don't really need them. They're mainly for the cultivation use of Qi refining stage disciples. Chu Xuan nodded and handed over the items. Lu Zhengxiong took out the transcribed Blood Evil Demon Refining Scripture and handed it to Chu Xuan. Go now, Lu Zhengxiong said solemnly. With Ouyang Hao having escaped severely injured, the Divine Star Sect will surely start a new sweep near Peace Market. Take care, and if you really can't hold out, come find me at the Wu family estate.
Chu Xuan paused.
Ouyang Hao had escaped injured? The man's body was lying quietly in his storage bag. Chu Xuan didn't correct him, but simply nodded.
Then, the two parted ways.
At the Wu family estate, Lu Zhengxiong removed his disguise, his expression wistful. Such a promising young cultivator, yet he couldn't keep him close for guidance. As Lu Zhengxiong returned, disciples like Chen Gu Weihua, Su Ming, and Bai Feng gathered around him eagerly. Uncle Master, did you find that disciple? Su Ming asked hastily. Lu Zhengxiong smiled. I did. Who is it? Everyone asked curiously. Lu Zhengxiong glanced oddly at Su Ming. You know him? Su Ming was taken aback. I do. Qin Gu Weihua Bai Feng, and the others were puzzled. Lu Zhengxiong laughed heartily. I won't keep you in suspense any longer. It's Chu Xuan. He's now reached the 8th level of Qi refining. Upon hearing this, Su Ming's eyes widened, and he was speechless for a long time. He had been training harder than ever, still struggling just to reach the 6th level of Qi refining. And Chu Xuan, whom he had considered of mediocre talent, had reached the 8th level? Impossible. Qin Gu Weihua Bai Feng, and the others were also stunned. They couldn't fathom how Chu Xuan's cultivation could have advanced so dramatically. The Infinite Sect had fallen less than a year ago, and yet Chu Xuan had soared to the 8th level of Qi refining? Suddenly, Chen Gu recalled something and hesitantly said, Last time we saw those 3 dead Divine Star Sect disciples, could it have been Senior Brother Chu who killed them? Lu Zhengxiong raised an eyebrow. That's very possible. With the capabilities of the 8th level of Qi refining, he could have swiftly eliminated those 3 if he caught them off guard. Chen Gu exclaimed with joy, Su Ming, it's like Senior Brother Chu saved our lives. Su Ming's face darkened. He had always believed that with hard work, he could surpass Chu Xuan. Hence, he hadn't regarded Chu Xuan as very formidable. Now reality had slapped him hard. Chu Xuan was not only formidable, but he had far surpassed him. Wei Hua Bai Feng, and the others expressed their envy. Senior Brother Chu must have had some incredible fortune to advance so rapidly. We're really envious of him. Lu Zhengxiong pulled out a storage ring. Here are 50 blood beads. You guys split them evenly. This is also a resource that Chu Xuan brought, he added. Qin Gu and the others excitedly accepted the blood beads. You don't want any? Wei Hua asked Su Ming curiously. Su Ming looked at the bright red blood beads, feeling a lump in his throat. If you don't want them, we'll just divide them up, and each of us will get one more. Chen Gu chuckled mischievously. I'll take them. Su Ming said through gritted teeth, snatching the blood beads. Lu Zhengxiong remained noncommittal towards Su Ming's demeanor. It was normal for there to be minor friction among disciples, and he had no desire to waste time on such trivial matters. Ouyang Hao was injured and repelled by Chu Xuan. Once again, the Divine Star Sect will undoubtedly conduct a thorough investigation of the Peace Market and its vicinity. During this period, you all must hide well. Without my orders, stay in the secret chambers and do not come out, Lu Zhengxiong commanded sternly. Yes, the disciples nodded in agreement. 10 days later. As expected, cultivators from the Divine Star Sect arrived at the Peace Market to investigate Ouyang Hao's whereabouts. The group was notably large, including 3 Foundation Establishment Stage elders and more than 10 Qi Refining Stage disciples. These cultivators turned Peace Market and the surrounding area upside down. Even the local cultivators dared not venture onto the streets, fearing the wrath of the Divine Star Sect cultivators. The investigation continued for 3 days. Even Wu Tong, a Foundation Establishment stage cultivator from the Wu family, was brought in for questioning. However, despite their efforts, they discovered little substance and left in a huff. Wu Tong returned to the Wu family estate and immediately sought out Lu Zhenxiong. Lu Zhenxiong was puzzled. Brother Wu, it was just Ouyang Hao getting injured. Yet, the Divine Star Sect spent 3 full days investigating here.
Injured?
He's missing. It's as if he's dead. Which disciple from your Infinite Sect was responsible for this? Wu Tong responded irritably. To think someone dared to kill a person favored by the great elder of the Divine Star Sect? Missing. Lu Zhenxiong exclaimed in surprise. Wu Tong sighed. If it weren't for Ouyang Hao's disappearance, would they have dispatched 3 Foundation Establishment stage elders and over a dozen Qi refining stage disciples to investigate? If not for my extensive experience, the Wu family estate might have been turned inside out. Lu Zhenxiong scratched his head, perplexed. This was not as he had imagined. He had always thought that Chu Xuan had merely injured Ouyang Hao, who, knowing he was no match, had fled. But now, it seemed that was not the case. Chu Xuan had outright killed Ouyang Hao and even taken his body. This revelation made him realize he had underestimated Chu Xuan. Chu Xuan's true realm might very well be the 9th level of Qi refining. Brother Lu, I can't handle this much longer. You must inform your disciples not to cause any more trouble. I have always served as a secret informant for the Infinite Sect, passing on information about the Divine Star Sect. I cannot withstand their repeated investigations. If it comes to it, you'll have to leave and find another place, Wu Tong said helplessly. Lu Zhenxiong nodded repeatedly. All right, Brother Wu, rest assured, I will certainly speak to them. He returned to the courtyard where he resided and overheard Chen Gu, Wei Hua, and others discussing in low voices. Ouyang Hao is dead. It's said that he disappeared, not died. What's the difference between missing and dead? Didn't the Divine Star Sect dispatch 3 Foundation Establishment stage cultivators to investigate? If you encounter this narrative on Amazon, note that it's taken without the author's consent. Report it. Who killed Ouyang Hao? Could it possibly be senior brother Chu Xuan? Seeing Lu Zhenxiong return, several disciples quickly rose to greet him. Lu Zhenxiong sighed lightly. You all know already? Qin Gu nodded. The news is buzzing everywhere. Even though we stayed within the estate, we learned of it from the servants of the Wu family. Lu Zhenxiong smiled helplessly. It seems Ouyang Hao is indeed dead. It appears I still underestimated Chu Xuan's strength. He must have been the one who killed Ouyang Hao and even took his body away. Wei Hua by Feng, and the others' eyes widened in shock. Chu Xuan's stature in their hearts instantly soared, nearly reaching the same level as Lu Zhenxiong. Ouyang Hao had slain so many Qi refining stage disciples of the Infinite Sect. They harbored both hatred and fear towards Ouyang Hao. Now that Chu Xuan had avenged those fallen disciples, their hearts swelled with joy, a most natural reaction. Su Ming's expression, however, was less than pleased. He felt the gap between himself and Chu Xuan widening further. Unable to contain himself, Chen Gu asked, Uncle Master Lu, why not ask senior brother Chu to join us too? Having him with us would surely be reassuring. Lu Zhenxiong replied helplessly, I wish I could, but he refused. Now, I regret not insisting more firmly on him staying. Ah! Qin Gu and the others were shocked. Chu Xuan was too audacious. Even a personal invitation from Lu Zhenxiong was declined? Lu Zhenxiong continued, Chu Xuan knows that resources are scarce. If I were to favor him with more cultivation resources, it would inevitably lead to discord among the disciples. So he simply chose not to join, intending to rely on his own strength to attempt the Foundation Establishment stage. At these words, Chen Gu, Wei Hua by Feng, and the others fell silent, even moved by his decision.
Chu Xuan.
Senior brother Chu. How selflessly he acts. Su Ming's face flushed with shame. He had once viewed Chu Xuan with such hostility, yet Chu Xuan had been considering their well-being all along. More words are of no use, you should focus on your cultivation. I still need to continue investigating the whereabouts of our 2 elder ancestors, Lu Zhenxiong sighed. The disciples nodded in agreement. The Golden Core period ancestors of the Infinite Sect had met various fates. Some had died in battle, some had surrendered, but 2 had escaped. Lu Zhenxiong had never ceased in his efforts to track them down. If they could find these Golden Core ancestors, their safety would be far more secure. If necessary, they would quietly leave Yu country and find a remote place to re-establish the Infinite Sect. As long as a Golden Core ancestor was with them, there was still hope. Within the cave, Chu Xuan exhaled a turbid breath and opened his eyes. The blood beads he had brought with him were nearly completely assimilated. He could feel his dantian was incredibly swollen, having reached its limit. Yet, despite this, there was still no sign of the spiritual qi liquefying, a clear indicator that he was not an exceptional genius. Without consuming a foundation establishment pill, it would be challenging to truly make that leap. Everything is in hand. It's time to leave, Chu Xuan murmured as he organized the spiritual medicines in his storage bag with a slight nod. He had not acquired these medicines from Peace Market. For caution's sake, he had used his flying sword to travel to a farther place, purchasing them in another market frequented by solitary cultivators. He even refrained from using the more powerful Divine Star flying sword, opting instead for the lower grade one he had before. Chu Xuan took out the blood mirror. The mirror's surface rippled with spiritual light, reflecting the scenes of the blue star. He connected his mind to it, and his body was immediately absorbed. The world spun around him, the scenery shifting in bizarre and peculiar ways. When clarity returned, he found himself standing on the rooftop of the Houtai Hotel. Roar! Hardly had he steadied himself when an excited growl echoed from nearby. Swoosh! Who rushed over in a swift stride and knelt before him like an affectionate puppy. Chu Xuan smiled and patted his head. How have things been during my absence? After a brief mental exchange with Hu, he nodded in satisfaction. Excellent. For months had passed on Blue Star. Throughout this time, no one dared approach the Houtai Hotel. Hu had remained diligently on guard, venturing out only at set times to forage, never straying from the hotel. During these 4 months of foraging, Hu had successfully advanced to a level 8 corpse soldier. The 6 ordinary corpse soldiers and 2 dogs he led had shown significant growth. The medicinal garden behind the hotel thrived, and the various spiritual plants flourished. Some of the plants could already be used in medicine, provided the age requirement was not too strict. Of course, Chu Xuan's primary focus was still on the life soul flower. He approached the Wolf King, who was on the brink of death, its body emaciated. Yet, because Hu fed it a piece of zombie flesh daily, it clung to life. Not bad, it's about to bloom. Chu Xuan expressed his delight. A day later, Chu Xuan was deep in spell cultivation when he suddenly smelled an intoxicating fragrance. This aroma could nearly bewitch all living beings on Earth, not through physical effect but by enchanting the soul itself. Chu Xuan's face brightened with delight, and he quickly used his spiritual qi to block his nose and mouth, turning his gaze towards the Wolf King. As expected, the previously budding life soul flower had now burst into full bloom. The Wolf King, who had been barely clinging to life for over 4 months, died at that moment. Its soul and vitality were completely usurped by the plant growing from its body. The life soul flower was unremarkable in appearance. It lacked large petals and looked no different from many common wildflowers. Were it not for its soul-entrancing fragrance, it would likely be indistinguishable from any wildflower. 1, 2, 3, 6 petals. Chu Xuan counted carefully 3 times, astonished. A life soul flower usually grew at least 2 petals, but it was rare to see more than 4. Even during the zenith of the Infinite Sect, when they cultivated these flowers in large numbers, they usually had around 4 petals. His luck was extraordinary to have cultivated a 6-petaled life soul flower. It's likely related to the virtue accumulated through my actions, Chu Xuan mused. Indeed, having virtue was beneficial. Such fortuitous occurrences could be influenced by the intangible virtue one possessed. Chu Xuan carefully took out a small jade scissors, meticulously snipping the life soul flower at the stem and storing it in a jade box. With this, a great weight was lifted from his heart. The life soul flower is a foundation establishment stage of spiritual medicine. This single flower, with its 6 petals, could be processed into the elixir for 3 foundation establishment blood pills. For many qi refining stage solitary cultivators of mediocre talent, this flower represented a stepping stone to the foundation establishment stage, an opportunity no one would want to miss. Even during the peak times of the Infinite Sect, when life soul flowers were cultivated in large quantities, their price remained exorbitantly high. If placed in the current market of Peace Market, this life soul flower could likely fetch tens of thousands of small spiritual stones. Having secured the most important ingredient, Chu Xuan quickly began processing the auxiliary materials. Some spiritual medicines needed to be dried to remove all moisture. Others had to be crushed into powder to maximize their effect. For some, the stems and outer shells were unusable, and only the extracted juices could be utilized. Chu Xuan had these steps memorized by heart. In less than an hour, he had all the auxiliary materials prepared. Finally, with solemnity, he took a pill furnace out from his storage bag. This furnace is called the 100 Herbs Furnace, which he had purchased from another market town. The 100 Herbs Furnace is merely a mid-grade magic tool. Typically, mid-grade magic tools are not very expensive, costing around 200 small spiritual stones. However, the crafting of a pill furnace differs entirely from that of ordinary magic tools, thus demanding a higher price. This 100 herbs furnace had cost him nearly 400 small spiritual stones.
Begin pill concoction.
Chu Xuan rubbed his fingers together, ignited the spiritual wood with flames, and heated the furnace. For his first attempt at pill concoction, he did not start with a foundation establishment blood pill but chose a chi refining stage pill to practice with. Unlawfully taken from Royal Road, this story should be reported if seen on Amazon. Rejuvenation pill. Consuming this pill accelerates wound healing and is useful in many situations. At the foundation establishment stage, cultivators could take the greater rejuvenation pill, which has an even better healing effect. However, many foundation establishment cultivators find the greater rejuvenation pill too expensive and prefer to use the rejuvenation pill for healing. Practicing with the rejuvenation pill was most fitting for Chu Xuan. Once the 100 herbs furnace was sufficiently heated, he placed the 3 types of spiritual medicines required for the rejuvenation pill inside. Midway through the process, the flames suddenly diminished, causing the pill liquid to solidify prematurely. Although Chu Xuan tried his best to salvage it, the pill liquid ultimately solidified into an awkward lump. Such a semi-finished product had weak medicinal strength and was rich in pill toxins. Chu Xuan didn't mind. It was his first attempt at a pill concoction, and failure was inevitable. He cleaned the furnace and restarted the process. The second furnace still ended in failure. But then the third and fourth attempts. Chu Xuan's speed and skill in producing rejuvenation pills improved with each attempt. Another cultivator might have felt frustrated and given up after 1 or 2 failures, but Chu Xuan was well prepared mentally. He had prepared materials for 40 batches of rejuvenation pills. By the 6th furnace, Chu Xuan's eyes lit up.
Success.
Although the rejuvenation pills were somewhat uneven and not aesthetically pleasing, they were clearly successful.
A flash of insight sparked in Chu Xuan's mind.
He immediately grasped that fleeting insight and eagerly continued his pill concoction. The 7th, 8th, and 9th furnaces. All were successful. The rejuvenation pills produced were smooth, plump, and bright red, emitting a refreshing fragrance. They were nearly indistinguishable from the rejuvenation pills made within the Infinite Sect, perhaps even surpassing them. Chu Xuan was immensely pleased. The insight that had flashed through his mind was his profound understanding of the process of making rejuvenation pills. I never expected that after concocting just 6 furnaces of rejuvenation pills, I would attain such a profound understanding. Am I now truly a bona fide alchemist? Chu Xuan's face broke into a gratified smile. This was clearly another benefit brought about by the accrual of merit. He did not pause, instead beginning to experiment with a new type of pill. This time, he attempted the featherlight pill. After consuming this pill, one feels as light as a swallow. Whether in pursuit or in flight, the effect is remarkably good. The speed of concocting the featherlight pill was faster than Chu Xuan had anticipated. Only 1 furnace failed. The second batch was a resounding success. Following this, Chu Xuan continuously tested several types of chi refining stage pills. 2 days later, Chu Xuan had achieved a 90% success rate in the pill concoction. This was a staggeringly high figure. Many foundation establishment stage cultivators might not achieve this. But Chu Xuan, through his relentless effort and that slight, almost negligible accrual of merit, had done it. Without a moment's rest, he rubbed his hands together, eager to leverage the momentum from concocting chi refining stage pills to succeed in producing the foundation establishment blood pill in one fell swoop. Foundation establishment blood pill.
Begin concoction.
Chu Xuan maintained his composure. Because the materials for the foundation establishment blood pill were limited to 3 portions. If he failed 3 times, he would have to resort to using the foundation establishment pill from Ouyang Hao for his foundation establishment, which carried a much lower chance of success.
The first furnace.
During the mid-phase of the concoction, the flames began to die down, and Chu Xuan added more spiritual wood. However, the flames suddenly flared up. The liquid within the pill furnace was burned off in a very short time, leaving behind a sticky, black mess at the bottom of the furnace. Why can't this 100 herbs furnace have a non-stick feature? Chu Xuan muttered under his breath.
But he wasn't disheartened.
After cleaning the furnace, he began the second batch of the foundation establishment blood pill. This time, everything went smoothly, avoiding all issues, and he proceeded directly to the final step.
The pill was formed.
A rich, fragrant aroma permeated the air of the rooftop. Chu Xuan took a deep breath, and immediately felt refreshed and invigorated, as if the speed of his blood flow had accelerated in that instant. Did it really succeed on the second batch?
Chu Xuan was astonished.
Was he really that skilled in concocting foundation establishment stage pills? It truly was thanks to his unyielding efforts. An hour later, The third furnace was also declared a success. Thus, Chu Xuan refined 2 foundation establishment blood pills. Adding on the 1 foundation establishment pill he had obtained from Ouyang Hao's storage bag, he now had 3 chances to challenge the foundation establishment stage. 1 foundation establishment pill can approximately increase the success rate of reaching the foundation establishment stage by about 30%. With 3 chances, I am certain to succeed. Chu Xuan was exceedingly solemn. The path to foundation establishment is the first threshold that all qi refining stage cultivators must overcome since embarking on the path of cultivation. Yet, of all qi refining stage cultivators, at least 80% are barred at this threshold. If foundation establishment pills were plentiful, Chu Xuan felt, the number of cultivators advancing to the foundation establishment stage could well be 70 to 80%. But the path of cultivation is so merciless. Resources are scarce, yet the number of cultivators pursuing immortality is ever increasing. If you advance, then I cannot. It is for this reason that demonic Dao cultivators have come into being. Chu Xuan shook his head, casting these miscellaneous thoughts out of his mind. He handed over Ouyang Hao's corpse to the likes of Long, Hu Bao, and other corpse puppets for consumption, and instructed them to diligently guard the Haotai Hotel. The flesh and blood of a qi refining 8th layer cultivator is a great nourishment for them. After consuming it, they should all be able to advance by about 1 level. Perhaps some wonder why not turn him into a corpse puppet. Because the condition for refining the puppet must be that he is alive. He then began to adjust his body and mind. Having continuously refined pills for several days, he felt mentally exhausted. In such a state, challenging the foundation establishment stage was clearly not an optimal choice. He would adjust everything to the best condition before attempting the breakthrough. 3 days later, Chu Xuan opened his eyes, his spirit tremendously revitalized. He took out a foundation establishment pill and swallowed it in 1 gulp. Buzz! Under the guidance of his will, the power of the medicine surged like a great river, violently coursing through his limbs and bones. Round after round, the medicinal power swiftly transformed into spiritual qi. The medicinal power contained in foundation establishment stage pills was far more formidable than that of the qi refining stage. The moment he took the pill, Chu Xuan even felt as if his entire body was on the verge of bursting. After running more than a dozen great heavenly circuits, the newly born spiritual qi, under his guidance, rushed straight towards his sea of qi. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Within the sea of qi, the spiritual qi had already expanded to its limit. Now, with a massive influx of spiritual qi, an intense sensation of swelling and pain emerged immediately. This was precisely the function of the foundation establishment pill. Pouring a substantial amount of spiritual qi into an already brimming sea of qi in 1 go, forcing the gaseous spiritual qi to liquefy. However, anyone familiar with physics knows that to liquefy a relatively inert gas requires immense pressure. If it doesn't succeed at once, it must be attempted again and again, until the medicinal power of the foundation establishment pill is entirely depleted. If the spiritual qi still cannot be liquefied, then more external medicinal power is required, meaning a second foundation establishment pill. This novel's true home is a different platform. Support the author by finding it there. Thus, the process is fraught with hardship. This is also the reason why many cultivators are unable to surpass this threshold. Chu Xuan sat in meditation, repeatedly driving spiritual qi into his sea of qi. Failure, failure, failure. Initially, he could still feel intense pain. But as time passed, the pain gradually numbed. He seemed to be mechanically compressing the spiritual qi. 5 days later, at one moment, he suddenly felt his body loosen. The external pressure had vanished. Chu Xuan examined his own body. It wasn't that the spiritual qi had been liquefied. Rather, the medicinal power of the foundation establishment pill had been exhausted. Chu Xuan was not surprised. Instead, he picked up a foundation establishment blood pill between his fingers, slapped it into his mouth, and continued to compress the spiritual qi. Another 5 days passed. Just like before, the medicinal power was depleted again. Chu Xuan did not hesitate. He immediately consumed the second foundation establishment blood pill. He was neither disappointed nor discouraged. On the contrary, he was eager to try again. For some reason, perhaps it was the destiny ordained by the cosmos, or maybe it was merely a premonition. He always felt this time, it would surely succeed. Sure enough, the moment he swallowed the foundation establishment blood pill, he felt an anomaly in his sea of qi. The formidable spiritual qi repeatedly collided and compressed. At the bottom of the sea of qi, those countless times compressed spiritual qi finally showed signs of liquefaction. At a certain moment, tiny droplets the size of rice grains appeared. Drip. The droplet fell to the bottom of the sea of qi. Its emergence seemed to trigger a chain reaction. Immediately, a large amount of spiritual qi began to liquefy.
Drip, drip.
In an instant, the bottom of the sea of qi accumulated into a small puddle. Within it, lay quietly a dozen droplets of liquefied spiritual qi. Chu Xuan felt complete relaxation throughout his body.
Boom.
At this moment, his aura surged explosively. A powerful aura swept across the rooftop, radiating vigorously in all directions.
Dust was cleansed away.
Within a kilometer radius of the Haotai Hotel, a fierce wind blew at this moment. The returning Long, Hu and Bao were suddenly startled, looking towards the rooftop with reverence. At this moment, Chu Xuan suddenly opened his eyes. A flash of brilliance in his eyes, filled with an awe-inspiring power. Foundation Establishment Stage. He clenched his fists, his face alight with excitement. Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators can fly without the aid of external objects, utilizing light-escaping techniques. Of course, most Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators still use external aids, as it doesn't consume their own spiritual qi. Additionally, there's an improvement in lifespan. Qi refining stage cultivators have a lifespan similar to ordinary humans, around 100 years. But for Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators, their lifespan skyrockets to 200 years. Of course, the most important aspect is that Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators can cultivate Foundation Establishment Stage techniques and spells. They can also refine their life-bound magic tool. The so-called life-bound magic tool must be nurtured together with the soul and essence blood, making its manipulation as natural as moving one's own limbs. Its power far surpasses those ordinary magic tools that do not integrate the soul, providing a significant enhancement. Moreover, a life-bound magic tool shares the cultivator's fortunes and misfortunes. As the cultivator's realm advances, so too does the grade of the life-bound magic tool. It is akin to a piece of equipment that grows by itself. These factors are fundamentally why Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators are far superior to Qi refining stage cultivators. Life-bound magic tools are very important. I must carefully choose and refine one myself. Chu Xuan decided not to use a ready-made magic tool, opting instead to craft his own. Although this approach is more cumbersome, it ensures a deeper understanding and mastery of his life-bound magic tool. Later on, this would make it much easier to wield. Chu Xuan took out a copy of the Blood Evil Demon Refining Scripture and carefully perused it. The first section of the Blood Evil Demon Refining Scripture discussed various methods for crafting magic tools. Soul-haunting spear, spirit-breaking knife, life-snatching sword, shadowless blade. Various magic tools flashed before his eyes. Some magic tools specialized in attacking the soul. Some excelled at breaking through spiritual qi. Some targeted the heart and vital organs. Some were traceless and ghost-like. Each had its unique uses. After much deliberation of his fighting style, Chu Xuan finally chose a magic tool. Evil Soul Chain, it shall be you. The Evil Soul Chain required an evil steel as the primary material, supplemented by white bone bamboo, intoxicating vine, and 5 other materials. It would ultimately be imbued with a powerful, fierce soul. After 36 days of continuous refinement, the Evil Soul Chain could be forged. Once activated, it could not only unleash a powerful soul-lashing flying chain but also command the fierce soul to battle alongside. A single magic tool, yet it could deliver double the effect. This was the formidable aspect of the Evil Soul Chain. Furthermore, as strength increased, an even more powerful soul could replace the existing one in the Evil Soul Chain, doubling its strength.
Evil Steel.
If this were on the Mystic Azure Realm, under the threat of orthodox sects, it would indeed be difficult to find. But here, it couldn't be easier. Chu Xuan suddenly smiled. The so-called evil steel is merely 100 refined steel that has absorbed a great deal of qi and evil qi. As for the 100 refined steel, it can be made from fine iron. Chu Xuan's storage bag had long been prepared with plenty of fine iron for the routine maintenance of magic tools. He only needed to find a place rich in evil, bury the 100 refined steel there, and let it absorb the evil qi. If he set up an array to gather evil qi, the formation of evil steel would be even faster. Yu country had long been controlled by the righteous 5 sects, and these places rich in evil qi were likely under the watchful eyes of the righteous cultivators. Should he dare to approach, he would certainly be subject to repeated questioning by them, and possibly even face life-threatening risks. But on this planet, Chu Xuan only needed to find a place with many zombies, kill them in batches, and let the evil qi condense. To gather evil qi, without tens of thousands of zombies, it would hardly be possible. I need to look around nearby. Chu Xuan nodded slightly. He released Long, Hu and Bao to search the southern part of East Lake City, while he himself rode the heavenly star flying sword northward. However, although there were many zombies in East Lake City, they rarely gathered together, wandering aimlessly instead. Gathering these creatures would certainly be a great effort. After searching for several days without discovering a large gathering of zombies, Chu Xuan furrowed his brows. That day, Chu Xuan prepared a lavish lunch for himself. Just as he was about to start eating, Bao suddenly returned, barking several times in succession. Chu Xuan listened carefully and quickly understood what Bao was saying. There are quite a few tough-to-chew zombies appearing in the south of East Lake City, and there's a human squad fighting them? Interesting. Chu Xuan raised an eyebrow. Tough-to-chew zombies likely referred to higher-level zombies. After all, for Long, Hu Bao and the others, the zombies here were just food. The higher the level of the zombie, the tastier they found them. A large appearance of high-level zombies could be a sign of something. A light bulb went off in Chu Xuan's mind. In various zombie-themed works he had seen before, they often mentioned something called a zombie tide. The causes of zombie tides were bizarre and varied. It might be due to a single zombie hearing something, or chasing a living person, thereby leading a group of zombies to move together. Zombies along the way, hearing the noise, would also join the group. Thus, like a rolling snowball, this would lead to the group growing larger and larger, eventually forming a terrifying zombie tide. Everywhere it passed, all living things would be obliterated. This wave-like swarm of zombies was particularly terrifying for human survivors. It was almost no different from a natural disaster. Of course, a zombie tide might also be led by high-level zombies. Some unique high-level zombies naturally had the ability to command lower-level zombies. This could also cause the snowball effect, expanding the number of zombies in the group to an incredibly terrifying degree. A large appearance of high-level zombies was likely the precursor to a zombie tide. With this thought, Chu Xuan immediately became excited. Taken from Royal Road, this narrative should be reported if found on Amazon.
Zombie tide. What does this mean?
Tens of thousands of zombies. No, perhaps even more. Isn't this the perfect opportunity to create a land rich in evil chi? Chu Xuan quickly finished his lunch like a whirlwind and immediately rode the heavenly star flying sword towards the south of East Lake City. After flying out of East Lake City's territory, he indeed saw a vast horde of zombies heading toward the city on the ground. Even a cursory scan showed that the number of zombies exceeded 50,000.
Good. Chu Xuan was invigorated.
He didn't pause. He immediately returned to the Haotai Hotel to start preparing the formation. He needed to have the formation ready before the horde arrived. He couldn't miss this great opportunity. Black Blade Security Company. A van carrying several exhausted individuals returned to their base. Wang Gangjian, Wang Yong, and Tang Jinchuan jumped down. Song Dei came quickly and asked in a low voice, "How did it go?" Wang Yong held up a hand, lowering his voice. Exactly 5 first-level zombies.
Song Dei gasped. "Brother, we should retreat."
The appearance of 5 first-level zombies at once is definitely a sign of a zombie tide. Wang Yong looked at Wang Gangjian, unable to resist saying. Tang Jinchuan nodded repeatedly, "I agree." Wang Gangjian sighed deeply. "What use is my being a second-level superhuman, if in the end, I still have to abandon the place where I grew up and leave my hometown?" Wang Yong sighed. "Brother, your promotion to second-level superhuman is great, but there's nothing we can do about a zombie tide. Under a zombie tide, how can there be any survivors? Even if you were a third-level superhuman, you wouldn't survive." Tang Jinchuan nodded, "I agree." Wang Gangjian waved his hand. "Give the orders, let everyone pack up and prepare to evacuate East Lake City. Tang and I will carve out a route. Xiaoyong, you go south to scout and see if there really is a zombie tide. Dei, pick a few brothers who can fix cars, look around nearby, and see if there are any more vehicles that can carry people. Our vehicles definitely won't be enough to take everyone." Wang Yong, Tang Jinchuan, and Song Dei all nodded seriously and immediately got to work. Under the management of Wang Gangjian and his team, the several hundred people of Black Blade Security Company were well disciplined. In 2 days, personnel and supplies were ready. However, the vehicles they found capable of running were still very limited. Even if each vehicle was packed to the brim, they could only fit about 100 people. At this moment, Wang Gangjian and his 3 companions gathered in the hall, with a map of East Lake City spread out in front of them. Wang Gangjian spoke solemnly, "Everyone, the zombie tide is indeed coming, and we probably have about 4 days. But we still lack vehicles, not enough to take everyone away. The only solution now is to look for trucks, buses, and other large vehicles." Wang Gangjian stretched out his finger and circled several spots on the map. These places, which include the bus company and large factories, may have undamaged trucks and vans. Our top priority is to secure these vehicles. He looked at the 3 men. "Pick a location each." None of the 3 complained and each went to a different site. They did not, because they were superhumans, hold themselves above others or regard the lives of ordinary people as mere dust. There was a time when they too were at the bottom of society. Having been rained on themselves, they now sought to provide shelter for others.
East Lake City Bus Company.
Tang Jinchuan, along with 3 strong men, drove to this location.
The van stopped.
Tang Jinchuan squeezed out of the van door with some difficulty before getting down. One of the men behind him chuckled, "Bro Tang, you're so fat, it might affect our escape. If there are high-level zombies here, you definitely won't run as fast as us." The other 2 men joined in the teasing. Tang Jinchuan scoffed, patted his belly, and immediately a wave rippled through. "What do you know, this fat on my body is what's going to save my life. You'll see when we really face danger." The trio, led by Tang Jinchuan, entered the bus company. The bus company looked no different from any other place nowadays, with weeds growing everywhere. It was a mystery how these weeds had managed to break through the hard concrete. Perhaps even the weeds were affected by psionics. The bus company was eerily quiet. It felt like a spider's web, waiting for the unwitting to stumble into it. Tang Jinchuan instinctively felt uneasy. Not a single zombie was in sight, which was very odd.
Holy shit!
Suddenly, one of the men behind him exclaimed in shock. Tang Jinchuan turned around and saw that the man had just squashed a palm-sized spider. "Damn, a spider just dropped down in front of me, scared the hell out of me," the man said, still shaken. "A spider scares you like that, what are you going to do if a high-level zombie shows up?" "You'll probably die of fright," the other 2 men scoffed. The frightened man's face turned red with embarrassment. Tang Jinchuan sternly said, "Didn't I tell you to keep quiet when we came in? Have you forgotten?" The 3 men immediately fell silent. "There are 3 buses here.
Each of you check one."
"I'll check the warehouse over there." Tang Jinchuan pointed to 3 relatively intact buses on the square. These buses, weathered by the elements, were unlikely to be operational, but they had to be checked anyway. What if they could still run? The 3 men got to work, each heading to inspect one of the buses. Tang Jinchuan headed straight for the warehouse, which was supposed to have a few spare buses. However, he had just reached the warehouse door when he heard a scream from behind. Tang Jinchuan's heart tightened, and he quickly turned around. The other 2 men also rushed over.
"Help me, help me."
The screaming man staggered out of the bus. On his neck was a blood-red spider the size of a washbasin. Its 8 thumb-sized eyes rolled wildly. Its sharp fangs were already embedded in the man's jugular vein. The man's face was turning a ghastly shade of purple as if venom was being injected into his body from the fangs. The 2 men standing by Tang Jinchuan turned pale. A spider as big as a washbasin was enough to terrify anyone. They had never seen such a monster before. Tang Jinchuan's reaction was swift. He suddenly pulled a small knife from his waist, slicing through the layer of skin on his belly. Instead of yellow fat flowing out, it solidified under his control into a spear over a meter long. With a roar, Tang Jinchuan hurled the spear with all his might. Whoosh! The spear tore through the air at high speed. The giant spider, still busy injecting venom into its prey, hadn't anticipated such a tactic. In an instant, the spear pierced through its head. The corpulent body fell to the ground. The man who had been bitten went limp and collapsed to the ground as well. The other 2 men hurried forward to support him. However, the bitten man's eyes were vacant, and he could no longer speak. Tang Jinchuan sighed lightly. The way a spider preys, injecting digestive enzymes into its victim, means he's already mostly an empty shell. Let's end his suffering now, rather than let him endure more pain. A case of literary theft. This tale is not rightfully on Amazon. If you see it, report the violation. The faces of the 2 men were somber, but they could only pull out their knives to grant their companion an early departure. Tang Jinchuan rummaged through the abdomen of the basin-sized spider but found no psionic core. This meant it wasn't even a level 1 superhuman creature. Tang Jinchuan's heart sank. If such a creature could easily kill a strong adult male and wasn't even level 1, what would happen if there were stronger spiders in this bus company? They might all perish here. "Tang, that bus can be started, but it's missing some parts. We need to check the other buses for replacements," said a man, taking a deep breath. "I've already brought the toolbox for repairs." Tang Jinchuan nodded. "I'll help you find the parts, you 2 stay here. There might be more spiders hiding around, so stay in the open area and don't get close to the buses." "Okay." Both men immediately nodded. Tang Jinchuan quickly inspected the other buses. Sure enough. As he was checking the second bus, a basin-sized shadow suddenly pounced from a dark corner, aiming straight for his neck. Tang Jinchuan was prepared. He immediately picked up a broken plastic seat nearby to block it. Clang! The fangs collided with the seat, making a loud noise. The spider, failing to bite him, emitted a sharp screech that seemed to carry an intense penetrating power.
Squeak, squeak, squeak.
Soon, responding calls came from every dark corner of the square. Pfft. Tang Jinchuan, his face ashen, thrust the spear, skewering the spider. He immediately got off the bus.
Run! Run!
Tang Jinchuan yelled. Now was not the time to keep quiet. He hadn't anticipated that the bus company was a spider's nest. Had he known, he would never have come here. This place was too damn terrifying. Seeing this, the two men also sprinted with all their might. Now, the mission was the least of their concerns. Survival was what mattered most. The next moment, palm-sized spiders surged out from every dark corner like a tidal wave, among them a multitude of basin-sized blood-red spiders. Tang Jinchuan glanced back and saw two spiders as big as desks, their multitude of compound eyes, sharp fangs, and bristling hairs chilling enough to raise goosebumps. Suddenly, a massive shadow descended from the sky. With a loud crash, it blocked the exit of the bus company.
Dust billowed everywhere.
Tang Jinchuan strained his eyes through the dust and shockingly discovered that it was a mass of spider silk. He quickly turned around and saw strands of spider silk as thick as an adult's thigh stretching from the warehouse of the bus company. It wasn't hard to guess that this large bundle of spider silk had been violently flung from the warehouse, smashing into the door. Tang Jinchuan immediately used his fat to conjure a spear and hurled it towards the web of silk.
Clang!
The spear collided with the spider silk, emitting a sound like metal striking metal. The spear was flung far away, landing softly as it reverted to fat. Undeterred, Tang Jinchuan continuously converted his fat into weapons like a greatsword and a battleaxe, attempting to sever the silk. However, after expending 2/3 of his fat reserves and bleeding from his palms, the spider silk remained unscathed, showing no signs of damage. These spider silks are incredibly tough. It must be the Spider Queen. Tang Jinchuan exclaimed in fear. The silk was harder than metal chains. It had to be the Spider Queen. He even felt a bit of relief. The warehouse was clearly the Spider Queen's lair. It was fortunate he hadn't approached it earlier, otherwise, he would have likely been killed instantly. Just then, another huge spider web shot out from the warehouse, enveloping the three men completely. The web covered a vast area, leaving Tang Jinchuan with no chance to escape.
Thump!
The web instantly stuck to the three men. The more they struggled, the more securely they were bound.
Damn it, we're done.
Tang Jinchuan felt a surge of despair. Suddenly, a sword's hum echoed through the sky. Tang Jinchuan focused his eyes and saw a figure standing on a flying sword, hovering in midair. His eyes widened in disbelief.
What? A sword immortal?
In Tang Jinchuan's view, the figure in the air was clothed flowing freely, riding the wind as if stepping on nothing. His gaze was like a flash of lightning, seemingly ready to unleash a sword shadow at any moment. The other two men also saw the figure in midair and were too shocked to speak. They couldn't fathom how, in a world overrun by zombies, such an out-of-place character could suddenly appear. But upon reflection, given that a zombie apocalypse had erupted, the emergence of a sword immortal didn't seem too outlandishly fantastical. Chu Xuan stood on his heavenly star flying sword, looking downward. With a single slash in midair, a streak of blood shot forth. With a whoosh, the web of spider silk was easily sliced through as if it were fragile paper. The streak of blood returned to his palm. It was the blood steel wire. Having easily cut through the spider silk, Chu Xuan was somewhat surprised himself. The toughness of the silk was much greater than he had anticipated. Such resilient silk could perhaps be used as a material for crafting magical instruments. This scene caught Tang Jinchuan's eye, and his jaw dropped in astonishment.
Holy crap!
I exerted all my strength, used up 2/3 of my body's fat, and couldn't even make a dent in the spider silk. And this person severed it in an instant? Who exactly is this person?
Chu Xuan acted again.
The blood steel wire, like a streak of scarlet lightning, flashed through the air.
Thump, thump, thump.
Wherever it passed, dozens of spider silk strands were instantaneously sliced in half. The Spider Queen inside the warehouse immediately let out an angry screech. Spiders of all sizes surged from all directions like a tide. Chu Xuan smiled faintly. These little creatures, they think they can harm me? With a simple gesture, Long, Hu Bao and other undead covered with a layer of hard bone armor, suddenly appeared. At Chu Xuan's command, they charged into the swarm of spiders like tigers into a flock of sheep. Each undead was like a tank plowing relentlessly forward. Everywhere they went, spiders were blasted apart, torn open, leaving behind only limbs and broken bodies. Chu Xuan walked towards the warehouse as if strolling leisurely through a garden. All spiders in his path were obliterated by the undead, torn apart in an instant. It seemed as though nothing in this world could stop his advance. Good heavens, he can actually control zombies. The two men were dumbstruck, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Such power, such composure, it was truly the bearing of a king. Tang Jinchuan's face was a picture of shock, his mouth hung open for a long while, unable to close. Snap. Chu Xuan moved unhurriedly, arriving at the front of the warehouse. With his hands clasped behind his back, he stood quietly. Long and Hu, having just obliterated a nearby spider, stamped the ground and quickly positioned themselves in front of Chu Xuan. They then launched powerful punches towards the sturdy warehouse door. The author's tale has been misappropriated. Report any instances of this story on Amazon. Bang bang bang. Their fists fell like raindrops. The steel door, battered by the force, began to deform quickly. After 3 seconds, it could no longer withstand the pressure and burst open. Sunlight streamed in, revealing the interior of the warehouse to everyone. Inside was a world of white. The walls, ceiling, floor, and even the buses were covered with thick, tough spider silk. At the center of the warehouse was a massive cocoon, housing an enormous, plump spider the size of a small room. Its sharp fangs were longer than short knives. Even now, it continued to produce spider eggs nonstop. For some reason, these eggs were hatching at an alarmingly fast rate. One after another, palm-sized white spiders rapidly emerged from their shells and surged towards Chu Xuan. Clueless creatures, Chu Xuan uttered dismissively. The silk produced by this mutated spider queen was excellent, arguably the finest a chi refining stage cultivator could encounter. But that was all it was, merely excellent. Since it was so cluelessly determined to fight to the death, Chu Xuan was ready to fulfill its wish. He would send it to its end. Chu Xuan extended his right hand, letting it hang down calmly. In his palm, a cluster of green, mournful flames began to gather. These flames seemed capable of scorching the soul itself. Tang Jinchuan and his companions watched from a distance, feeling a chill in their hearts. He can also control fire? Tang Jinchuan was astounded. Initially, he had guessed that this person's talent was controlling zombies. But now, he discovered that this individual could also control fire. Could one person have 2 talents? Tang Jinchuan scratched his head. He had never seen such a thing. In the blink of an eye, the nether fire orb was ready. Chu Xuan had long perfected this spell. From the beginning of accumulation to full formation, the time had been compressed to a single breath, a matter of 3 to 4 seconds. Chu Xuan's expression remained indifferent as he hurled the nether fire orb forward. Long Hu Bao and the other undead hastily cleared the path. As the nether fire orb made contact, it burned fiercely, never ceasing its flames. The creatures wisely did not wish to come into contact with this ghostly fire. The Spider Queen's 8 compound eyes suddenly shrank, sensing the terror of the green fireball. It screeched in alarm, causing a large number of spiders to abandon their attack and desperately throw themselves at the nether fire orb. However, the fire orb rolled forward like a boulder, crushing all living beings that dared to obstruct its path. The approaching spiders were instantly turned to ashes by the green flames, and the power of the nether fire orb showed no signs of diminishing. Closer and closer it came. In a final effort, the Spider Queen let out a piercing screech that resonated through the air. Despite being at least 30 meters away from the warehouse, Tang Jinchuan and the others felt as if their heads were being struck by a massive hammer. The 2 men with him passed out instantly, and Tang Jinchuan nearly lost consciousness himself, seeing stars before his eyes. Just before blacking out completely, he saw the Spider Queen's plump body engulfed by the green flames. Then he knew no more. Chu Xuan stood inside the warehouse, firmly planting a banner into the ground, completing the setup. The array he was assembling was called the Evil Soul Snatching Array, which included the Chi Gathering Array, the Evil Chi Array, and the Soul Snatching Array, among several smaller arrays. This array would cover an unprecedentedly large area, requiring a total of 360 banners for its formation. The East Lake City Bus Company was one of these 360 anchor points. He had not expected that his visit would also inadvertently reveal a level 3 mutated Spider Queen. These 3 psionic cores, you 3 divide them among yourselves. Chu Xuan casually tossed the cores to Long, Hu and Bao, who swiftly swallowed a core and then scurried up to Chu Xuan with something in hand. Chu Xuan looked down to see a strand of spider silk, unusually resilient. Touching it, he felt a cool sensation. Hu gestured animatedly. Chu Xuan nodded. Did you dig this out of the fire? Interesting, to find spider silk that can withstand nether fire. Well done, this blood pearl is yours. He flicked a blood pearl to Hu as a reward, which Hu excitedly accepted and began to absorb on the side. Chu Xuan pocketed the spider silk. This cool, fire-resistant silk was perfect as one of the materials for crafting the Evil Soul Chain. While the main material, Evil Steel, was fixed, the other 6 auxiliary materials could vary. Let's move on to the next anchor point. Chu Xuan said as he gathered Long, Hu Bao and the others, swiftly heading to the next location. Including this one, he had now planted 300 of the 360 banners. With the zombie tide nearing East Lake City, there was no time to waste. More than an hour later, Tang Jinchuan and his two companions slowly regained consciousness. Upon waking, their heads throbbed with unbearable pain, as if a giant elephant had trampled over them repeatedly. The two men remained frightened, vigilantly scanning their surroundings. Tang Jinchuan, mustering the last remnants of his strength, formed a shield from his dwindling fat reserves and cautiously approached the warehouse. However, inside the warehouse, there was nothing left. The bloated body of the mutated Spider Queen had vanished without a trace. The spider webs that had once blanketed the warehouse were now completely incinerated, leaving only a few strands in the corners. Had Tang Jinchuan not seen these remnants, he might have doubted whether the mutated Spider Queen had ever existed. He could not see the array flags that Chu Xuan had planted. Chu Xuan, to ensure security, had concealed all the flags with an illusion array, making them invisible to those with weak psionic abilities. The two men supported each other as they staggered over to Tang Jinchuan. Observing the now empty warehouse, they couldn't help but feel amazed. "Bro Tang, seems we've benefited from that great man's actions," one of them murmured. "Yeah, if it weren't for him taking out that mutated Spider Queen, we'd be dead by now. It looks like all the spiders here are gone, we can safely check the buses now," the other added softly. Rejuvenated by this realization, Tang Jinchuan said, "Right. Let's make the most of our time. We'll report everything that happened here to the boss once we get back." Their luck was good. 3 of the buses in the warehouse were largely intact and operational. 2 others were slightly damaged but could still be driven after some repairs. Moreover, they found a significant amount of gasoline and diesel in the warehouse, which could serve as fuel for their evacuation. 5 buses and only 3 of us to drive them, Tang Jinchuan declared, waving his hand. "Let's head back to the company immediately and get some help." By dusk, they returned to Black Blade Security Company. In the main hall, Wang Gangjian, Wang Yong, and Song Dei looked utterly dejected. Tang Jinchuan entered with a joyful expression, but his face fell when he saw them, especially upon noticing that Song Dei was missing an arm.
What happened?
Things didn't go well?
Tang Jinchuan asked.
Wang Yong managed a bitter smile. "My trip to the factory went smoothly enough, but I only found one large truck that was still operational." Song Dei, still pale, spoke softly. "I encountered 2 high-level zombies. Everyone I took with me died, and I lost an arm but barely managed to survive." Wang Gangjian sighed. "We only found one large truck, which is far from enough. If push comes to shove, we might have to draw lots."
He couldn't finish the sentence.
The mere thought of drawing lots to decide who could escape on the truck was too cruel. Most of the members of Black Blade Security Company were old buddies who had been with him since before the zombie crisis started. The idea of abandoning them was unbearable. Love what you're reading? Discover and support the author on the platform they originally published on. Tang Jinchuan chuckled, breaking the somber mood. "Don't look so gloomy, I've got some good news." The 3 men looked at him in surprise. "Did you find some buses?" they asked. Tang Jinchuan grinned mischievously. "Guess how many?" Wang Yong thought for a moment and held up 2 fingers. 2. Tang Jinchuan shook his head. Song Dei held up 3 fingers. 3. Again, Tang Jinchuan shook his head. Wang Gangjian frowned. "Don't tell me there's only one? How would that be good news?" Tang Jinchuan couldn't stop smiling. "You're all wrong, it's 5. Wang Gangjian and the others were stunned, then their eyes lit up with elation. 5 buses. If they packed them a bit more, they could surely fit everyone. There might even be enough room left over to load some extra supplies. "Tang, you better not be joking," Wang Gangjian said excitedly. Tang Jinchuan replied earnestly, "I've checked them myself. All 5 buses are in good working condition, there are some spare parts, and there's plenty of fuel. It's enough to get us to the territory of the Linjiang Army." The Linjiang Army's main stronghold was in Dragon River City, the capital of Linjiang Province. Although the direct distance from East Lake City to Longjiang City was only about 500 kilometers, the actual journey could be fraught with various unforeseen dangers, and the road traveled would definitely exceed 500 kilometers. Naturally, the more fuel they had, the better. "Great. As soon as it's light tomorrow, we'll go and bring the buses over," Wang Gangjian said, hardly able to contain his joy. Even Song Dei's pale face brightened slightly with relief. "Weren't you in any danger, Tang?" Wang Yong asked. Tang Jinchuan's expression turned serious. "There was danger. If it weren't for some good luck, I might not have made it back." Wang Gangjian and the others tensed up. "Tell us everything." Tang Jinchuan then recounted everything that had happened at the East Lake City Bus Company. After hearing the tale, the three men were speechless, their minds struggling to settle from the shock of the ordeal described. Flying with a sword?
Controlling zombies. And he can control fire.
And the spider silk that you couldn't break after dozens of attempts, he just sliced through it effortlessly? The three men exchanged glances, each seeing the shock in the other's eyes.
Who was this person?
Did East Lake City really harbor such a formidable individual? Controlling zombies. Back on the highway, didn't a wolf pack get wiped out by a superhuman who could control zombies? Wang Yong suddenly remembered a past incident. The elimination of the wolf pack had occurred several months ago. Wang Gangjian also paused, then slapped his thigh in realization. That's right. It all connects now. Could it be the same person? Song Dei exclaimed in surprise, which means East Lake City has been home to a powerful superhuman all this time. The trio was momentarily thrilled. This superhuman must be of a high level, at least a second level, and possibly even the legendary third level. However, their excitement soon faded as they remembered the grim reality. Even the most powerful superhuman is no match for a zombie tide. General Yi of the Linjiang Army, a third-level superhuman, had once single-handedly broken through a zombie horde to rescue 16 researchers from the Life Sciences Research Institute. Yet, even he wouldn't dare to face a horde of tens of thousands of zombies alone. There's a saying that fits well here: enough ants can kill an elephant. A superhuman's psionic powers are not infinite. Once depleted, they must rely on their physical bodies, which can easily be overwhelmed by a tide-like swarm of zombies. Moreover, some individuals' talents are not suited for combat. What good is a third-level superhuman then? When the zombie tide comes, wouldn't they need to flee East Lake City just like everyone else? Let's not overthink this. Our evacuation plan remains unchanged, Wang Gangjian said solemnly. Agreed, the three responded gravely. The next day, 5 buses, 1 large truck, and 4 cars were ready outside Blackblade Security Company. The company's premises had been cleared out. All important materials, grains, and other provisions were loaded into the vehicles. Under Tang Jinchuan's direction, every member efficiently boarded the vehicles. At Wang Gongjian's command, the convoy set off, heading northward. At the junction of East Lake City and Two Dragon City on the highway, the evacuation convoy came to a halt. The terrain here was elevated, allowing a view of the southern part of East Lake City. Wang Gangjian climbed atop one of the vehicles and pulled out his binoculars to take one last look at the city he had never left since he was born. Leaving now stirred a bittersweet feeling inside him. He wanted to take a few more glances at his home, suspecting he might never see it again. Wang Yong, Song Dei, and Tang Jinchuan joined him. The rest of the members stayed inside the vehicles, as Wang Gangjian had ordered. Too many people getting out and then needing to board again would waste valuable time. It was best to stay put. I see the horde, it's rapidly approaching the city, Wang Yong with sharp eyes, pointed towards the southeast, speaking in a hushed tone. Wang Gangjian and the others directed their gaze in that direction. Indeed, they saw an immense, seemingly endless tide of zombies relentlessly charging into the small city. There were still some remaining survivors in East Lake City who hadn't joined any factions. They only managed to scream before being overwhelmed by the sweeping tide of undead. There are even flying zombies now. Song Dei exclaimed, noticing some zombies in the sky sprouting wings, his eyes widening in shock. It's been 5 years, various advanced zombies have appeared, Wang Gangjian murmured. If our growth rate can't keep up with that of the zombies, we'll eventually be consumed or killed by them. Wang Yong, Song Dei, and Tang Jinchuan nodded in agreement, acknowledging the harsh reality. Psionic energy had permeated the globe, causing animals and plants to undergo wild mutations. If humans couldn't harness psionic energy to climb the evolutionary ladder and adapt to this new psionic era, they would inevitably be outpaced and replaced by new species. Let's go, our scent will eventually be picked up by the zombies, and it'll be too late if we delay any longer, Song Dei sighed softly. Wang Yong and Tang Jinchuan nodded and began to head back to the vehicles. However, Wang Gangjian suddenly noticed something and uttered a soft huh. What is it, brother? What are you still looking at? Wang Yong asked, puzzled. Wang Gangjian pointed towards a specific area. You have sharp eyes. Look over there, is that area shrouded in thick fog? Wang Yong activated his talent, Farsight, enhancing his vision to focus on distant objects at the expense of his near sight. He immediately noticed, indeed, there's a heavy fog over that area, and it's not present anywhere else. Tang Jinchuan and Song Dei, hearing the conversation, came back. Tang Jinchuan chuckled, what are we looking at? Wang Yong pointed to the area and asked Tang Jinchuan, Tang, have you been to that area? There's heavy fog now. Tang Jinchuan squinted toward the distance and nodded. Isn't that the territory formerly held by the spirit hounds? I passed through there on my way to the East Lake City bus depot a few days ago. There was no fog at that time. Strange there's fog now. This tale has been unlawfully lifted without the author's consent. Report any appearances on Amazon. Song Dei commented lightheartedly, with a zombie crisis erupting, what's so strange about a bit of fog? Wang Yong and Tang Jinchuan nodded in agreement. Indeed, in a world where the unnatural and unscientific had become commonplace, not every anomaly warranted concern. Hey! A lot of zombies are being diverted, rushing into that fog. Wang Yong, intending to deactivate his farsight, suddenly noticed something alarming. He could see clearly that dozens of zombies, followed by hundreds, were veering off from the main horde and charging into the fog. Wang Gangjian, Tang Jinchuan, and Song Dei were taken aback by his report. What was happening? Had the zombies changed their nature? Instead of chasing living humans, were they now drawn to empty air? Within less than 5 minutes, masses of zombies were breaking off from the horde heading north and sprinting into the foggy area. This included many robust, agile advanced zombies. What on earth is in that fog to draw so many zombies? Wang Yong kept his eyes fixed on the fog-covered area. After another 5 minutes, Wang Yong reported a shocking observation. The northbound zombie horde had completely turned and was now heading into the foggy area. Do you see what's happening? Wang Gangjian pressed for details. Wang Yong relayed what he saw. Wang Gangjian and the others were stunned. Had the zombie tide been diverted just like that? What sort of allure did that foggy area hold? Zombies enter the foggy area and then just disappear. None come out, Wang Yong added solemnly. Wang Gangjian and the others were even more amazed. Could that foggy area be a bottomless pit? Did it have the capacity to hold as many zombies as could possibly enter? After a moment's contemplation, Wang Gangjian ordered, "Command the convoy to halt, everyone stays in their vehicles." And so they waited, from daylight until nightfall, watching the mysterious fog that seemed to swallow an entire zombie horde. The nights after the zombie outbreak were terrifying. Dangerous zombies and mutated animals could be hiding anywhere. Wang Gangjian, including himself as one of 4 superhumans, organized 2 night patrol teams in shifts. One team for the early part of the night and another for the latter part. Together with the sturdy men from Black Blade Security Company, they formed a formidable watch over their campsite. With hundreds of people camping outside, the strong human scent could attract unknown creatures, and everyone was on edge. However, the night passed without significant incident. Aside from a few stray zombies and mutated wild dogs, there were no surprises. As the sun began to rise, Wang Gangjian and the 3 other superhumans stood early on a hillside, looking towards the city. The fog is still there, it hasn't dispersed, observed Wang Gangjian. There are still a lot of zombies and supernatural creatures converging from all directions, rushing into the fog, added another. Brother, do you think we weren't attacked last night because all those creatures were attracted to the fog? Wang Yong pondered, looking at the one around him. Wang Gangjian replied dryly, I'm right behind you. Wang Yong laughed awkwardly and turned around. Tang Jinchuan seriously suggested, I think so too. That fog seems to have a strong attraction for supernatural beings. Maybe it's like something out of a novel. Could it be some kind of precious natural treasure has appeared? Do you think those zombies and supernatural creatures might fight each other over it? A battle to the death, where we could just pick up the spoils afterward, he speculated. The prospect excited Wang Gangjian and Wang Yong. Indeed, it was possible. If they could scavenge in the aftermath, they might obtain a wealth of psionic cores. In the current world, psionic cores were absolutely invaluable. Whether for fueling one's evolution or for trading, they were a prime resource. However, Song Dei cautioned, we should leave as soon as possible. If any of those creatures get hold of whatever is creating that fog and become stronger, even reaching level 3 or 4 as a superhuman, we won't stand a chance against them. Don't forget, we have hundreds of ordinary people relying on us here. We need to live up to their trust. The weight of Song Dei's words settled heavily on them. He was right. The lives of many were resting on the shoulders of these 4 superhumans. They couldn't take that risk. They couldn't afford to gamble with so many lives at stake. After much contemplation, Wang Gangjian devised a compromise. I will approach the area alone to see exactly what's happening. If the situation becomes perilous, we'll evacuate immediately. His implication was clear. If the situation wasn't dire, there might be no need to flee. After all, the several hundred members of Black Blade Security Company were most familiar with East Lake City. Starting anew in an unfamiliar place would pose significant challenges. If they could avoid leaving, they would. Seeing them about to protest, Wang Gangjian cut them off. I'm a level 2 superhuman, physically stronger than any of you. No more discussions are needed. Wang Yong and the others fell silent. Wang Gangjian took a walkie-talkie and drove a car back into the city. As they watched him leave, Wang Yong, Song Dei, and Tang Jinchuan felt a deep unease. Over 2 hours later, Wang Gangjian arrived just outside the area enshrouded by the mysterious fog. The silence within the fog was eerie. It seemed as if all noise had been swallowed whole. Logically, if something was drawing these zombies and supernatural creatures into a conflict, there should have been a cacophony of chaos. Why was it so quiet? The fog churned ominously, resembling a malevolent, man-eating demon. Wang Gangjian, aware of the dangers, did not recklessly enter. Instead, he looked around and stopped at a discarded fire hydrant. He settled down beside it, wrapped his arms around the hydrant, and twisted sharply. A crisp snap echoed as he forcibly unscrewed the hydrant. Becoming a superhuman and integrating a psionic core had not granted Wang Gangjian any particularly strange abilities. Instead, his arms had grown incredibly strong. Since nobody had given a name to his talent, he called it Strong R. After advancing to a second-level superhuman, his arms had grown even stronger. Using brute strength to twist off a fire hydrant was not too difficult for him. Wang Gangjian let out a low roar as he unleashed his power, hurling the hydrant forcefully into the fog. The hydrant tore through the mist and crashed to the ground 20 meters away, briefly dispersing the fog. With the fog momentarily cleared by the impact, Wang Gangjian could finally see the scene within. The area covered by the fog was dim and ghostly, more reminiscent of hell than of the human world. He was startled to discover that the zombies and supernatural creatures stood motionless, rooted to the spot. Numerous dark swords, formed from condensed black mist, darted back and forth through the air. With each pass, they pierced the hearts of the undead and extraordinary beings. Those struck down were immediately drained of their vital essence, their corpses withering into desiccated husks. Wang Gangjian's eyes widened in disbelief. Even in the first year of the zombie apocalypse, when East Lake City had transformed into a veritable purgatory, he had endured. Yet, the spectacle before him was still profoundly shocking. What had transpired here? And what were these phantom black swords? Suddenly, his walkie-talkie crackled to life.
Boss, look up.
Quickly, above you. Urged by the voice, Wang Gangjian hastily looked overhead. To his astonishment, he saw a figure standing upon a flying sword, looming high above him. The piercing gaze and the daunting aura felt as if an invisible hand were clenched around his throat. This narrative has been purloined without the author's approval. Report any appearances on Amazon. A memory flashed through Wang Gangjian's mind. That day at the East Lake City bus depot, Tang Jinchuan had been ambushed by a swarm of spiders, including a tremendously powerful mutated spider mother. It was then that a young man wielding a flying sword appeared, slaying the mutated spider mother and indirectly saving them all. The figure before him now, also maneuvering a flying sword and similarly youthful, must be the same person. Chu Xuan looked down upon Wang Gangjian and spoke indifferently. Hadn't you left? Why return? He had been aware since the dawn of Black Blade Security Company's intended departure from East Lake City. Presumably, they had decided to evacuate only after noticing the encroaching tide of corpses. He had no ties to these people and thus had not interfered. Over the past few days, Chu Xuan had been atop a nearby skyscraper, monitoring the situation within the array he had set, the evil soul-snatching array. Now that someone had approached the perimeter of his array, it was necessary for him to make an appearance, to prevent any disturbances. We feared that formidable supernatural beings might emerge here, so I came to assess the situation, Wang Gangjian explained, his forehead beading with sweat. This man had effortlessly slain the mutated spider mother. To him, crushing Wang Gangjian would be no different than crushing an ant. He spoke cautiously, wary of offending the mysterious and potent figure before him. Chu Xuan surveyed him briefly and stated calmly, any living being that enters will not come out alive. Let that be the end of it. Within a kilometer of this place, do not approach any closer. With those final words, he stamped on his heavenly star-flying sword and vanished into the sky like a streak of sword light, leaving no trace behind. Chu Xuan did not intend to kill this person, as long as he did not disrupt his plans. If this mortal had possessed great merit, killing him would have damaged his virtue. The oppressive weight that had felt like Mount Tai on Wang Gangjian's shoulders lifted at that moment. He collapsed to the ground, his body limp. Glancing down, he noticed his garment was soaked with sweat. So powerful he didn't even need to lift a finger. A few glances and a few words had me drenched in sweat. Wang Gangjian chuckled wryly to himself. Once again, the walkie-talkie crackled. Brother, how did it go? Did that person give you any trouble? Wang Yong eagerly asked. Wang Gangjian took a deep breath before replying. No, he just warned me not to approach the foggy area. He also said that any living thing that enters the fog will not come out alive. I saw it for myself. Many of the zombies that entered the fog have already died, and the rest will likely die within a few days. We can rest easy now. Tang Jinchuan and Song Dei were astonished, but considering the stranger's formidable abilities, it seemed unlikely that he would lie to them. This reassurance allowed them to relax. Wang Gangjian continued, let's call the convoy back. We no longer need to evacuate East Lake City. This wave of zombies, numbering in the tens of thousands, has perished in the fog. East Lake City will actually be the safest place for the next few years. Wang Yong and the others were visibly brightened by this news. The city and its surroundings were now cleared of zombies and supernatural creatures, a tremendous stroke of fortune. It was almost like a paradise. Wang Yong, soothe the brothers and have them return in batches. There's no rush, Wang Gangjian instructed. Don't worry, brother. And about my box of game consoles, don't lose it. Wang Gangjian added urgently. Wang Yong replied with a laugh, you're even more anxious than I am. 2 days later, within the evil soul snatching array, Chu Xuan rode his heavenly star flying sword into the heart of the formation. With the array disc in hand, the black swords formed from condensed evil chi did not attack him. Chu Xuan looked around. No figures stood in place anymore, just swathes of fallen zombies and supernatural creatures, like harvested rice. Chu Xuan made his way to the core of the formation, where a deep pit was located. The evil chi condensed from the dead zombies and supernatural beings flowed toward this pit. At the center of the pit, a faint cold light flickered. Chu Xuan's face lit up with delight. Perhaps due to the rich concentration of evil chi, the formation of evil steel was occurring faster than he had anticipated. At this rate, in less than 2 months, he would have a batch of high-quality evil steel. Chu Xuan stepped out of the array's bounds, content with his work. A sudden impulse made him look up, and to his astonishment, he saw the sky filled with multicolored auspicious clouds. These clouds churned and transformed into the shapes of dragons and phoenixes, mythical creatures that showered the earth with the light of good fortune. Bathed in this auspicious light, Chu Xuan felt an enlightening clarity wash over him, his spirit buoyant as if ascending to immortality. All his previous confusions regarding the blood evil demon refining scripture seemed to dissolve instantly, as if he had been granted profound insights. Moments later, the skies rumbled with the sound of spring thunder, yet there was no hint of darkness on the horizon. Soon, a fine rain began to fall. Astoundingly, the droplets were golden, as though forged from molten gold. Chu Xuan stood motionless in this golden shower, each drop that touched him quickly merging into his body. With his eyes closed, he deeply sensed the rain's effect and was amazed to discover his soul expanding at an incredible rate. Previously, he could control a maximum of 10 corpse puppets at once. If any of these possessed a higher rank, his capacity diminished further. For instance, with corpse puppets like Long, Hu and Bao, he could manage only 3 at most. Should any of them advance to the rank of corpse general equivalent to a foundation establishment stage cultivator, he would not be able to control any others. Now, after the baptism of the golden rain, he felt capable of controlling up to 20 corpse puppets. Even if Long, Hu or Bao advanced to corpse general, he could manage them with ease. Auspicious clouds and soul-cleansing golden rain. Chu Xuan finally opened his eyes, marveling at the phenomena. This was indeed the merit accrued from slaying nearly 100,000 zombies. Compared to the previous manifestation of golden blossoms that had subtly enhanced his fate and longevity, the benefits brought by this celestial event were significantly greater. The soul-cleansing golden rain had enhanced his soul, a rarity for cultivators at the foundation establishment stage, who had few methods to strengthen their spirits. Chu Xuan was aware of a technique within the Infinite Sect called soul refining technique, which even at its pinnacle only slightly bolstered the soul, perhaps by 10 to 20% at most. Yet, nothing compared to the golden rain, which had doubled the robustness of his spirit. Looking down, Chu Xuan noticed that even the unknown wild grass at his feet had undergone a transformation under the golden rain, appearing unusually lush and vibrant. Perhaps one day, you too shall transcend the mundane and ascend to sanctity. With a faint smile, Chu Xuan commanded his heavenly star flying sword and turned to leave. After his departure, the wild grasses suddenly began to vie for the remaining soul-cleansing golden rain. Their roots turned into iron chains and their leaves into swords, relentlessly slaughtering their kin. Fields of grass perished, their sap splashing out in golden hues. Ultimately, only one victor survived. It unearthed its roots and thrust them into the bodies of its kin, reaching into the splattered golden sap. Quickly, it absorbed all that remained of the soul-cleansing golden rain. Within minutes, it blossomed and bore fruit rapidly. A bird flying overhead spotted the fruit and swooped down to consume it effortlessly. Not knowing how far it had flown, the bird suddenly slowed and ultimately plummeted to the ground dead. Inside its body, a vibrant green sprout emerged, rapidly growing into a lush wild grass indistinguishable from the others, except perhaps when the fierce wind blew, one might notice the sharp fangs it seemed to grow. The author's narrative has been misappropriated. Report any instances of this story on Amazon. At Black Blade Security Company, after 2 days, all members had returned to their original positions. However, everyone watched the dense fog in the distance with apprehension, always half expecting it to spread someday and engulf the entire city of East Lake. Wang Yong would stand at the highest nearby point every day, keeping a vigilant watch over the fog morning, noon, and night. On this day, as usual, he activated his farsight and looked towards that area, only to be abruptly stunned. There, magnificent 5-colored clouds spread across the sky, condensing into dragons and phoenixes of an incredibly mystical nature. Golden rain began to fall from the sky. Wang Yong's eyes widened in amazement.
Such an auspicious omen.
To think he would be so fortunate to witness such a spectacle in his lifetime. Not only did he see this phenomenon, but other early risers within Black Blade Security Company also caught sight of it from afar, equally astounded. Word quickly spread, and soon nearly half of Black Blade's personnel gathered on the rooftop, looking out at the scene. What exactly is happening? It feels like the celestial omens recorded in ancient histories. Could it be that East Lake City has birthed an immortal? Should we get closer to have a look? The crowd buzzed with speculation. Some, bolder than others, suggested approaching for a closer inspection.
Shut up.
A stern voice called from behind. The man approaching, with a buzz-cut and notably robust arms and strong build, was none other than Wang Gangjian. Before you returned to the company, I had already ordered that no one should approach within a kilometer of the foggy area. Can't you understand human speech? Wang Gangjian stared down the crowd, his rebuke cutting through the murmurs. The people lowered their heads, overawed by the authority of a level 2 superhuman. They dared not meet his gaze. Those who just mentioned wanting to approach the fog, confine yourselves for 3 days. Wang Gongjian's stern voice commanded.
Yes,
came the feeble response from one of the individuals. Disperse now, and attend to your duties. Wang Gangjian waved his hand, and the crowd quickly scattered. Wang Yong sighed lightly and turned to Wang Gangjian. Brother, do you think this is good or bad? It's a multicolored auspicious cloud. It should be a good omen, Wang Gangjian responded seriously. I suspect this auspicious sign is related to that cultivator. From now on, we must enforce stricter controls over our company members. We cannot allow anyone to approach that area. Wang Gangjian was somber. The death of one is a minor matter. If that one person were to anger that cultivator, no amount of remedy would suffice afterward. Wang Yong, Tang Jinchuan, and Song Dei all nodded seriously in agreement.
Understood.
2 months flashed by in the blink of an eye. At Haotai Hotel, Chu Xuan exhaled a breath of turbid air and looked at the flawless mid-grade magic tool in front of him, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. These 2 months were not spent solely in sedentary cultivation. Instead, he practiced tool refining daily. Tool refining differs slightly from pill concoction. While pill concoction primarily uses spiritual herbs, tool refining uses metals, which often obstruct spiritual thoughts, making tool refining somewhat more challenging. This was precisely why Chu Xuan had started practicing early, accumulating experience. Clearly, the immense merit he carried once again provided assistance. After several failures, he became adept at producing lower-grade magic tools with a low failure rate of only 30%. After refining lower-grade tools for a month and reducing the failure rate to 10%, Chu Xuan began attempting mid-grade magic tools. Now, he had managed to control the failure rate of mid-grade magic tools to 30%. In the Mystic Azure Realm, Chu Xuan, with such a level of proficiency, would be considered a bona fide tool refiner. After a brief rest, Chu Xuan laid out new materials with confidence. In evil steel, white bone bamboo, intoxicating vine. These materials were essential for crafting the evil soul chain. As for a powerful living soul, Chu Xuan had yet to decide on one. However, this was not a pressing issue. The strength of the evil soul chain lay in its flexibility. Once the magic tool was forged, a living soul could be selected and infused at any time. Chu Xuan planned to extract the soul of a Foundation Establishment stage cultivator or demonic beast upon his return to the Mystic Azure continent, maximizing the power of the evil soul chain.
Begin.
Chu Xuan exhaled a breath of turbid air and started crafting his lifebound magic tool, the evil soul chain.